Hello everyone, welcome to Talk Fanfiction Audiobook. Subscribe our channel for new update and share our videos.
I 1. Am sure lots of ex-husbands hire contract killers to kill their ex-wives. A few months ago, I'd found out that my ex, David, had done just that. Until that moment I'd thought he was dead. Unfortunately, it had turned out that he was very much alive. No, I'm pretty sure they don't. My best friend, Haley Hansen, who bore a striking resemblance to Cinderella in both looks and naivete, sipped the expensive rose she'd been kind enough to bring to my house. Haley is super mega rich, married to a plastic surgeon, and loves me unconditionally. She's also the secretary of the Bee Creek Elementary parent-teacher organization, which means our meeting notes are verbatim. We follow most of the bylaws, and the rose is plentiful. Today her nanny, Annis, had taken our kids to the park and then for pizzas so that we could get down to some PTO business. I can't afford expensive rose or even the cheap kind that comes in a box. My name is Mustang Ridges, and no, I'm not a stripper or a dusty Central Texas town. I'm the billing manager for Lakeside Hospital and the president of the Bee Creek Elementary parent-teacher organization. Oh, an ex-wife to David the Shit, who may or may not be the legendary Cervantes who runs the criminal underworld for a good portion of the continental United States and wants me dead. It certainly had never occurred to me to put a hit out on David. Mainly because I spent all of my hard-earned money buying frivolous things like food, electricity, and Dunkin' Donuts K-Cups. Now that I think about it, I really should cut back on all my electricity usage. From now on, no more flat ironing my hair. I was going au natural. The good Lord gave me my brown frizzy hair, and it was time I shared that special gift with the world. Any idea what the going rate is for killing an ex? No idea. Haley thought about it for a second. If it were me, I'd charge no less than 6 figures. 6 figures? If I only ordered off the dollar menu at McDonald's, I just might be able to swing the hit money in about a million years. Then again, how would I explain to my 10-year-old son, Max, that we could only order off the dollar menu because mommy was saving up to have someone kill daddy? And in a million years David will already be long dead. It really takes the fun out of killing someone if they're already dead. I know a guy who'll off David for a $20 Starbucks gift card. My other best friend, Monica Garza, sat across from Haley at my small kitchen table. Monica is our esteemed PTO vice president. Also, she's a badass workers' compensation claims adjuster with lots of attitude and even more curly black hair. I can't decide if she's a former CIA agent posing as a workers' comp adjuster, or if she's just in a street gang. And that's where she learned all sorts of nifty things like how to break into a house and how to steal a car. Either way, I feel like it's rude to ask. Really? Come to think of it, I'd be willing to do just about anything for a Starbucks gift card myself. Don't listen to her. Haley nodded at Monica. How good can her hit man be if he's willing to work for coffee? Her blue eyes scrunched up in the corners like she was mulling things over. Is hitman sexist? It feels sexist to me. Should we call them hit persons? I hunched my shoulders. We could just call them killers. That's gender neutral. I think we've gotten off topic. Monica was excellent at steering us back to the discussion at hand. We know that David put a hit out on you. Since both of the local contract killers are dead, do you think you're safe? Several months ago, our kid's beloved kindergarten teacher, Molly Myers, had been murdered. While investigating her murder, we'd found out that she'd been doing some contract killing on the side to supplement her teacher's salary so her mother could live in a fancy retirement village. To be fair, if Edna Myers were my mother, I'd have taken up murder for hire to keep her out of my house too. Unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on how you looked at it, Edna had been murdered. Even if I didn't already know who'd killed her, I still wouldn't have cared. Some people deserved to be murdered in some horrible, slow way. In my opinion, Edna's getting shot in the head was way too quick and painless. Think Molly and Dr. Turley were the only contract killers in Lakeside. Haley seemed to think I was still in real danger. It Ned out that Molly had been killed by her hitman mentor, local pediatrician Dr. Turley, because she'd refused to complete the hit on me. Haley had shot Dr. Turley seconds before he was going to kill me, so now our little community of Lakeside, Texas, was down 2 hitmen hit persons. No idea. I guess they could call in someone from the outside. Call me stupid, but I still couldn't wrap my head around the fact that David wanted me dead. It wasn't that we were so in love that I believed he couldn't live Without me, it was more that he's super cheap. Once, I'd caught him unrolling the 2-ply toilet paper, separating the plies, and creating 2 rolls of crappy 1-ply paper. Come to think of it, he loved coupons. Maybe he'd found one for a hitman? It seems to me that 2 things you always want to pay full price for are contract killing and plastic surgery. You never want the lowest bidder on either. Just to be safe, I think you should come live with me. Haley poured more rose into my glass. No, really, I'm good. While living with Haley would be like living in an exclusive spa, what with her personal chef, massage therapist, housekeeper, and nanny for her twin girls, I still couldn't bring myself to say yes. It was an imposition, plus, I like having my own space. You could come live with me, but it would be crowded. Monica has a son the same age as my Max and they live in a tiny duplex. Believe it or not, her house is even smaller than mine. I live in a guest house at the home of Astrid Petrie, Lakeside's craziest resident. Considering that Lakeside is the mecca for crazy rich people, that's saying a lot. My rent is cheap, but I pay the high price of having to put up with Astrid. Both Monica and I are have-nots in a city full of have-everythings. In Lakeside, you're either mega rich or poor. The middle class pulled up stakes and moved to less greener pastures long ago. Since I aspire to be lower middle class, I should probably move away. Then again, I'm no quitter. And if I moved away, who would laugh at all of the batshit crazy rich people? It's really the only public service I provide. No, I'm fine right where I am. My guest house wasn't fancy, but it was all mine. Well, it was all mine as long as I paid the rent. It had 2 tiny bedrooms, 1 itty-bitty bathroom, a microscopic living room, and a huge kitchen that was completely wasted on me because I'm allergic to cooking. The day I gave up cooking, the number of global food poisoning cases decreased by half. You're welcome, world. What about a bodyguard? Haley was all concerned. Cinderella. I'm happy to hire one. You mean have someone live with me? I'm pretty sure that Bautista is still following me. I'd just talked Damon Rodriguez, our resident undercover DEA agent who happened to be a trust fund kid, into letting me live alone. He takes overprotection to a new level, and that's why he has his butler/MI6 agent, Bautista, watch every move I make. And then there was Ben Jameson, another trust fund baby, who'd grown up to be a Lakeside police officer and who also wanted to keep me safe. With all of these people looking out for me, it was a wonder they let me go to the bathroom by myself. No, I'm good. Apart from the occasional listening device installed in my kitchen, I'm safe here. Well, mostly safe. I'd learned the hard way that you should always write the date on the takeout containers before you stow them in the fridge. After a while, all of those white boxes look alike. Some bad beef and broccoli had ruined Chinese food for me. To this day, I can't stomach the smell of egg rolls or broccoli, or really any vegetables in general. Your life's in danger. David isn't someone who's going to give up. That's why he made such a good police chief, although, Haley tapped her chin with one French-tipped finger. I guess he wasn't the best police chief considering that he was behind most of the crime. You think? Monica sipped her rose. Haley stuck her tongue out. Monica put her hand over her heart. Sticking out your tongue isn't cussing, but I believe you're making progress. I hold out hope that one day you're going to be able to throw out a fuck you in casual conversation. Did I mention that Haley is a lot like Cinderella? She doesn't cuss and rarely eats carbs and exercises daily, while Monica and I are more like trailer trash Barbie. We cuss, eat tons of carbs, and believe that exercise is a form of mind control that we must resist. My doorbell bing-bonged. I glanced at the door and then the clock on the microwave. It was 8:03 p.m. I wasn't expecting anyone. I walked to the door and looked out the peephole. There was nothing but night. I opened the door a crack and looked around. There was a small Amazon box sitting neatly in the middle of my welcome mat. I picked up the box and shook it. I hadn't ordered anything from Amazon in over a week. It looked like the box had been opened and resealed with clear packing tape. I closed the door and brought the box to the kitchen table. Did Amazon send you something in a resealed box? Monica leaned over and touched the clear packing tape. Did y'all hear about the Amazon contract delivery driver who dumped over 60 boxes in a ravine because he didn't want to deliver them? The ravine was in a neighborhood and the people who lived there delivered all of the packages. I saw it on the news. I grabbed my scissors from the butcher block that would have held Knives if I actually cooked and slit the tape on the box. Inside, there was lots of red tissue paper. I moved it aside and gasped. There was a yellow sticky note stuck to what looked like it couldn't be. The note read, "He's mine, bitch. You can't have him." Is that a? Haley lowered her voice, penis. Too. Am pretty sure it is. Not that I was about to handle it. Whose is it? Monica studied the note. And more. Importantly, W. Hi, haven't you told us about your secret boyfriend? Both Monica and Haley watched me, unblinking. What secret boyfriend? I could barely handle the two men who were trying to be my boyfriend. I simply didn't have the time or energy for a secret boyfriend. I have no idea who it belongs to. It wasn't like it had any identifying marks. You've seen one circumcised penis, you've seen them all. Think it's real. Haley eyed it like it would jump out of the box and start dancing around. Don't know. Monica turned around and pulled a pen out of her purse that was hanging on her chair back. She pushed the penis around with the pen. I think it might be real. She pulled her smartphone out of her pocket and thumb-typed at warp speed. Surely it's not real. Haley refused to believe that the world wasn't good and kind, which didn't explain her fanatical love of guns, and, really, all weaponry in general. You can't buy real body parts off Amazon. I just checked. Monica slipped her phone back in her pocket. I picked up the box and looked for some way to identify who'd left it for me. The original Amazon shipping label had been ripped off and the only writing left on the box said Amazon. Why would anyone leave you a severed penis? Monica picked up her pen and poked it some more. Is this some sort of message from Cervantes? That he's coming for you? It doesn't make sense. If Cervantes really wants me dead, why send me a dead penis? Surely the criminal mastermind known only as Cervantes was better at intimidation than that. This looks amateur hour to me. I think Cervantes wouldn't have handwritten a note. Plus, what kind of message does a severed penis send? I don't have a penis, so he can't cut mine off. I guessed he could have sent me a severed vagina, but in all honesty, I wasn't sure I would have recognized a severed vagina. Monica and Haley thought about it. Monica nodded. You're right. This isn't about killing you. This is a warning for someone to stop screwing around. It's a terrible warning and definitely not well thought out, but it's a warning. So whom have you been screwing around with? Sorry. Haley held up a hand. With whom have you been screwing around? Thank God the grammar Nazi corrected herself because I was about to faint dead away at her use of a preposition at the end of a sentence. Monica rolled her eyes. I shot Haley a yeah right look. Trust me, if I'd been screwing around, the two of you would know it. Hell, I'd be bragging about it. I hadn't had sex in so long, I wasn't sure I remembered how. Then what does this mean? Haley hated puzzles, so this would haunt her until she figured it out. Monica grinned. She loved puzzles. I can't wait to find out. Think. There's a dead body that should be attached to that penis. Maybe. It was hard to think logically about a dead penis. I'd have heard if a man had come into the emergency room because of a missing penis. I worked at Lakeside Hospital, which was the only hospital for miles. I didn't think the man missing the penis would have driven all the way into Austin to get medical attention. Assuming that the man is dead, why send you his penis? Presumably, the person who wants him badly enough to kill and slash or maim him knows that he's dead now, so no one can have him. Monica looked from me to Haley. And then back to me. Also, I'd think that the person who wants this man all to her or himself likes having sex with him. Doesn't this seem like a flawed plan? Is this like cutting off your nose to spite your face? I followed her logic but didn't believe that anyone who was willing to chop off a penis was all that logical. Or cutting off his penis to spite having sex with him. So the person this came from could still be alive. Haley glanced down at the penis. How are we supposed to find the former owner of the penis? Well, Cinderella, are you suggesting that we walk around with it trying to fit it to different men until we find the one who fits into the glass slipper? Monica was the queen of sarcasm. Or maybe we could tweet out. Will the owner of the severed penis delivered to Mustang Ridges please pick it up? Or we could go around to male-dominated clubs like the Kiwanis and Knights of Columbus and ask for a show of hands on who's missing a penis. I'd left out the VFW in the male-dominated clubs list because it had gotten blown up a few months ago. I didn't do it. But I'd been there. It had taken weeks to get the debris out of my hair. Then we're taking the case. Monica sounded excited. What case? Occasionally, we the PTO murder club investigated. Yep, you guessed it, murders. The area was a little grey as to whether this was a murder, but hell, rules are made to be broken. The case of the missing penis, Haley chimed in. I bet Agatha Christie would have killed for that title. I'm pretty sure her publisher would have killed her if she'd tried to use it. Monica glanced back at the locked cabinet where I kept what we called the murder board. It was really just a piece of cardboard where we glued what we thought were clues. I glared at Monica. I know what you're thinking. I'm not gluing a penis to the murder board. Besides, the one piece of cardboard we'd used for the last 2 murders we'd solved had been used up. I'd have to schlep all the way to Michael's and buy a new one. Come to think of it, I don't plan on handling the penis. I pushed the box closer to her. I don't want it. Monica pushed it to Haley. You take it. Take it where? Haley threw up her hands. What am I supposed to do with it? She pushed it in front of me. It was delivered to you. You keep it. Where? I threw up my hands too. Haley and Monica both eyed my freezer. Oh no. I'm not risking severed penis cooties infecting my frozen pizza supply. Without frozen pizza, Max and I would starve to death. Monica and I looked at Haley. No way. Absolutely no way. I'm not taking that home. Where would I put it? How would I explain it? No. Haley crossed her arms and used her mom voice. From past experience, I knew that was a solid no. We didn't even bother to hit Monica up for penis storage because Haley and I both knew that wasn't going to happen. I have an idea. Haley sighed like the weight of the world rested on her shoulders, or possibly just the weight of a severed penis. I have a neighbor who is out of town. She won't be back for another week. I have a key to her house. I'll need to drop off the penis tonight. She checked her watch. The dog sitter has a late class and asked if I could check in on Rover. Once, we'd used another one of her neighbor's houses to store some things during a murder investigation, but that couple was back in town. Your neighbor actually has a dog named Rover. Monica shook her head. Not very original. If you'd ever met Mrs. Comstock you'd see that she's never had an original idea in her life. Haley rarely spoke badly of anyone, so when she did, that person must truly be horrible. Very catty, not quite sarcastic, but you're getting there. Monica. One arm hugged her. I'm very impressed. Thanks. Haley hugged her back, then stood, stretched, and checked her watch. Anis should be here any minute. She was supposed to pick me up and drop off the kids at 8:30. Monica and I really appreciated when Haley shared her nanny with us. I see. Loosed the box and shoved it into a canvas grocery bag. I handed it to Haley. You stash this at Penis Place and tomorrow I'll put out some feelers in the medical community for information on any man who's sought treatment for a missing penis. When I said it out loud it sounded even more strange. I'll see if Bautista knows anything about a missing penis. Monica smiled smugly. If he knows anything, I'll get it out of him. Recently, she'd started dating Bautista, a gunsmithing butler by day and MI6 operative by night. She had him wrapped around her little finger. The front door opened and Max stepped inside. He waved at us on the way to his room. Landon's outside waiting. Landon was Monica's son and he was the same age as Max. Remember when they weren't too cool to hug and kiss you? I shook my head. Every day Max marched closer to teenagerhood. I was beginning to see why most of the world despised teenagers. They had a very well-deserved reputation. Yep. Now, I'm lucky to get us up not. Monica gathered up her belongings and headed to the door. Talk tomorrow. Absolutely. Haley waved as she headed to the door. You bet. I waved to them both. I was happy to be rid of the severed penis. I shook my head. Just when I'd thought that I'd seen and heard it all, a severed penis showed up on my doorstep. At least my life is never boring. T. 3. Next morning, I sat at my desk in my itty-bitty closet of an office at Lakeside Hospital's billing office and tried to figure out how to discreetly ask if anyone knew anything about a missing penis. My employees turned minions, Jack Seymour and Melly Johansson, were in the next room either hard at work or hard at work looking busy. I don't micromanage. I have another minion, Big Roz, who does collections, but since her personal hygiene and personality both leave a lot to be desired, she works from home. I'd been doing some research on severed penises, or was it penii? Either way, I hadn't known penis severing was a thing, but apparently it was. Many years ago, a woman named Lorena Bobbitt had cut off her Husband's penis, driven off with it, and thrown it into a field. Apart from the grossness of the crime, the thing that had really struck me was that Lorena had put up with years of domestic violence and rape and had never been suicidal, but John Wayne Bobbitt had been missing his penis for like 10 minutes and was already contemplating suicide. I grabbed my coffee cup and drained the last drops of my second Dunkin' Donuts chocolate glazed K-cup and rolled my chair 4 inches. And poked my head into the outer office. Jack marked off claims he was working on the open claims report while Melly typed furiously on her computer. So, have either of you heard of any strange injuries that have come through the ER? Surely the owner of the severed penis I'd received was just as attached to it as John Wayne Bobbitt had been to his, so he had to have sought medical attention immediately. Last week there was a guy who was mauled by an armadillo. Jack pushed back from his desk. He had to have 79 stitches. Anything else? Not that an armadillo mauling wasn't unusual. Jack glanced at Melly. That's all I've heard about. Melly shook her head. I got nothing. I hadn't even heard about the armadillo mauling because I've been too busy with my new boyfriend. All Melly seemed to do these days was gush about her new boyfriend. Suspiciously, she wouldn't tell us his name. Jack was convinced that it was someone we all knew, but I was convinced that Melly's mysterious boyfriend was made up. Why? Have you heard of something really weird coming through the ER? Melly sat up. Is it weirder than that guy who accidentally drove onto the bridge that was under construction and was impaled on all of that rebar? Or stranger than that time the man claimed to be cleaning his bathroom and ended up with a doorknob in his anus? Jack looked up from the rejected claims report. Melly leaned forward. Come on, spill. Nothing exciting ever happens to me. I have to live vicariously through the ER. She really didn't have much of a life, bless her heart, and she lived for gossip. Now that I thought about it, I didn't have much of a life and I lived for gossip too, so who was I to judge? Well, I had heard that, I couldn't think of a single way to casually bring up the severed penis. The phone on my desk lit up and buzzed with a call. Whoever it was had incredible timing. I need to get this. I rolled back to my desk and picked up the phone. This is Mustang, how may I help you? I get paid to be polite on the phone. I only remember that about 20% of the time, so this person was very lucky. It's Jane Doe. There's something I need to tell you. Jane Doe, which is her real name, is a substitute teacher at Bee Creek Elementary. Our paths had crossed a couple of times. Not over the phone. That sounded ominous. I didn't know Jane very well, so I had no idea if ominous was her normal state of being. Okay. It sounded like it might be an emergency. Are you teaching today? I can drop by the school at lunch. No, her voice turned to a whisper, can you meet me at Lakeside Park by the playground in an hour? I checked the clock on my phone. It was 10:14 now, so I could take an early lunch. Sure. Thanks. She hung up. That was more than odd. In addition to sounding grave, Jane had also sounded scared. I wondered if I should call her back and tell her that I could leave right away. Whatever the problem was, it sounded urgent. I scrolled for her number on my desk phone's small screen. Instead of numbers, all it said was unknown caller. 57 minutes later, I pulled into the parking lot next to the play scape at Lakeside Park. Usually I'm late for everything, but this time I was early. Something was wrong and Jane needed my help. I'd been polite on the phone and I was early, all in the same morning. I really felt like I should get a trophy, or at least some sort of medal. I parked next to a green Toyota Camry. I assumed it was Jane's, since there were no other cars in the lot. I waved at Jane in the driver's seat, but she didn't wave back. I opened the door to my latest Porsche Cayenne, Pepette. A gift from Damon, stepped out, and went around to the passenger's side of the Camry. For someone who'd insisted on seeing me right away, Jane wasn't all that eager now. All she did was stare straight ahead. I pulled on the door handle and sat down in the passenger's seat. What was so urgent? Jane didn't respond. Jane. I pulled on her arm. What's wrong? Jane listed to the right and fell against me. Her eyes were open. I felt for a pulse and got nothing. What did it say about me that my first thought was, oh crap, not again? I pulled my cell out of my back pocket and hit 9-1-1. 9-1-1, what is your emergency? The 9-1-1 operator yawned. It appeared that they didn't get that many emergencies in Lakeside. I'd like to report a death. I didn't know if it was a murder. I couldn't see any signs of trauma. I scanned Jane's body, looking for anything out of the ordinary. There was a tiny trickle of blood on her left earlobe. That was it. What is your location? The opera. Tor yawned again. I would have thought that the last place to suffer from boredom would be the 9-1-1 call center, but clearly I was wrong. I'm parked next to the playground at Lakeside Park. I tried to prop Jane back up, but she kept falling over onto me. I've dispatched Lakeside PD. They should be there soon. Please stay there until they arrive. She yawned again. Would you like for me to stay on the line with you? No, that's fine. I hung up. This was the second time I'd ever called 911, and both times, I'd gotten someone who couldn't have cared less. Where were those touchy-feely "I am gonna help you through this crisis" 9-1 operators like on TV? I pushed Jane upright and quickly got out of the car. I glanced back in. Time to see her body fall over into my seat. A white scrap of paper was on the driver's seat and appeared to have been tucked under Jane. I walked over to the driver's side and opened the door. I knew I was tampering with the crime scene, but there was a note. Maybe it said, "I'm going to be murdered today and my killer is." The paper was the flap of an envelope. A large corner chunk was torn off and it looked like someone had spilled coffee on it. The writing was blurry. I didn't want to pick it up, but I couldn't quite make out the writing. I leaned closer. It said, "In town to kill Mustang." My heart stopped and I looked around like I might see the killer pop out from behind one of the oak trees. Someone was in town to kill me? Presumably it was me. I didn't think Mustang was a very good name. I guessed it could be a last name, but I didn't know anyone named Mustang, so I didn't know why Jane would have wanted to meet me to tell me that. Maybe it wasn't Mustang at all. Maybe it was Muskrat or Mustard. The last word was hard to make out. There was a splotch of writing after Mustang, but it was so blurry I couldn't make it out. I pulled my phone out of my back pocket and hit the video record button. Slowly, I ran the camera over the note, the seat, the dash, and Jane. I needed to capture every single detail of this car. I noticed again the tiny drip of dark red on her left earlobe. I leaned in closer. It might be blood. I zoomed in on it. I needed to find out who was in town to kill me, and I didn't have faith in the police. Well, I almost trusted Ben Jameson, who was a Lakeside PD officer that I sort of might be dating, but if I wanted something done right, I'd have to do it myself. Jane had called me an hour ago. Wouldn't her phone be with her? I looked around, but I didn't see it in the car. Her purse was missing too. I needed to find her cell phone. I gagged. As gross as it was, I checked Jane's body for a phone. I couldn't find it. The key was still in the ignition, so I went around to the passenger's side, leaned in, and turned the key. I waited for the electronics in the car to boot up. The navigation screen showed that no phone was paired with the car. Had she left her CELL at home? In this day and age, no one left without their cell, unless she'd thought someone was using it to track her. But her purse? Why leave that? Before I could talk myself out of it, I grabbed the note and stuffed it in my pocket. Sirens blared from not too far away. I snapped some photos and then stuffed my phone back into my pocket. 2 black Chevy Tahoes with blinking lights and blaring sirens screeched to a halt on either side of the Camry and Pepette. Officer Frank Shelby stepped out of the Tahoe on the right and Officer Terry Montrose slid out of the Tahoe on the left. Both had their guns drawn. Step away from the car and place your hands on your head. It was Frank. Both of the police officers knew me. Not too long ago, my ex had been their boss. I put my hands on my head. I'd never actually been arrested. The closest I'd ever come was shortly after I'd found out that my husband had been cheating on me. I'd gone to the Lakeside Police Department office with a baseball bat and a really bad attitude. "Is that you, Mustang?" Frank shaded his eyes from the blinding Central Texas sun. "Yes. I found the body." I kept my hands on my head. "I was supposed to meet her here. Her name's Jane Doe." "Jane Doe? That can't be real." Frank lowered his gun. "You can put your hands down. Her last name is Dough. And yes, unfortunately, that's her real name. At least, I thought it was. It wasn't like I'd carded her to verify it. I've got to call B." And Terry holstered his gun. "Why? Ben Jameson wanted to be my boyfriend, but I wasn't sure calling him was a good idea. The whole Lakeside PD is on notice to call Ben immediately if you're involved in any case." Terry unhooked his radio from his shoulder. "This is 4567 I'm 10 to 20 with a possible 1-8-7. Tell 4513 that age 6377 is also 10 to 20. Again, be advised that age 6377 is 10 to 20 at Lakeside Park. 10-4 age 6377 is 10-20, the female voice ground out. It was Esther. She was older than dirt, had been with the police department since the dawn of time, and hated me with a vehemence usually reserved for pedophiles and televangelists. What's an age 6377? I knew that 10 to 20 meant location and 10 to 4 meant affirmative, but I'd never heard of an age 6377. It's your call sign. Your age 6377. Terry depressed the button on the mic and let it fall to his shoulder. The H stands for hot and 6377 spells MESS on the phone's keypad. I rolled my eyes. How flattering. A police siren roared in the distance and then another Tahoe sped down the park's driveway and slammed on the brakes behind the Camry and Pepette. Ben Jameson threw the driver's side door open, jumped out, and scooped me up in a bear hug. Are you okay? He held me slightly away from him, looking me over. For damage. I'm fine. I knew better than to fight him off. He would take his sweet time making sure I was okay. What happened? He kept his arm around my shoulder as he led me to his Tahoe. She called me an hour or so ago and asked me to meet her at the park. I knew I should probably tell him about the note I'd found, but since he worried and tended to hover like a mom over her firstborn child, and he'd given me the police call sign of hot mess, I wasn't sharing that little scrap of paper with anyone but Monica and Haley. When I got here, she was dead. How does this keep happening to you? He shrugged his shoulders. I never find dead bodies. Maybe now wasn't the best time to bring up the severed penis. I glanced down at his crotch and then realized I was staring at his crotch and looked away. Would he have mentioned missing his penis if it had been severed? In the very least, I would expect he'd be missing work. I'm a Libra. We're just lucky that way. I shot him my most blinding smile. My plan was to dazzle him with teeth until he forgot the dead body behind me. He seemed unfazed by my smile. Don't you mean unlucky? I don't know. There are worse things than finding the occasional dead body. Off the top of my head, I could think of several. Eating chocolate-covered crickets or being kidnapped by the Church of Scientology or receiving a severed penis. Don't ask him about the severed penis. Now, having your penis severed, that's what I'd call unlucky. Don't you think? His whole body flinched and he took a step back. I couldn't help but notice that he laced his hands together in front of his crotch. Why would you say that? Horrified wasn't a whore. If I'd enough word to describe the horrified look on his face, I would take that as a no. Not that I knew for sure, but I was willing to bet that his penis was very much attached. No reason. Did I mention that I don't have a filter from my brain to my mouth? Sometimes words just fall out. Half the time, my brain is convinced that the words didn't actually come from my mouth. You don't just say something like that to a man. He sounded truly outraged. Okay. Got it. I'd known that a man's identity was based entirely on his penis, but I hadn't known that casually bringing up a severed penis in public would cause so much outrage. My identity certainly wasn't wrapped up in my genitalia. I'd certainly rather lose my vagina instead of an arm or a leg or an eye. I didn't think the same was true for men. Ben put his hand in the small of my back and led me to the passenger's side of his Tahoe. He opened the door for me and I climbed up. He climbed behind the wheel and closed his door. He picked up a tablet, flipped the cover open, and turned to me. Start from the beginning. Like I already told you, Jane called me a little over an hour ago and asked to meet me. She said she had something to tell me, but she didn't want to do it over the phone. When I got here, she was dead. I was very proud of myself for not mentioning the note I'd found. After all, the note could have been referring to anything: a Mustang horse or maybe even the car in town to kill Miston. Could mean a lot of things. I couldn't wait to get Monica and Haley's opinion on what had happened. S. 4. Oh, you just found her slumped over the wheel of her car. Haley sipped the Bordeaux she'd brought to my house. No. I mean yes, I found her in her car, but she wasn't slumped over. I snagged a piece of Meat Lover's pizza from the box on my small bistro-style kitchen table. The kids were draped on the sofa like dirty laundry playing Xbox and scarfing down pizza. What did Ben say about the investigation? Monica asked around the bite in her mouth. He didn't say much of anything. He didn't say anything about murder. But at least this time they're going to investigate the death. That hadn't been the case with the last 2 deaths in Lakeside. Neither had been ruled a homicide. Granted, the second one had involved a fake death, which had turned out to be a heart attack later on, so I guessed I couldn't fault the Lakeside PD for botching that one. The only sign of trauma I saw was the little trickle of blood on her left ear. I pulled out my phone. I took video and several pictures. I handed my phone to Monica. By the way, I looked for Jane's cell phone thinking that maybe it could help us find the killer, but I didn't find one. I also didn't find her purse. That's odd, don't you think? Yes, but there's nothing we can do. Good job with the pictures. Monica scrolled through the pictures. I'll forward these to my phone and then print them out at work. Why do we need pictures? Haley daintily bit into a piece of veggie lovers pizza. Since she was the only one eating veggie lovers, I didn't know why she'd gotten a large. It was probably because she's a glass half full kinda girl. Clearly, she was hopeful that I'd slip on a puddle of pepperoni grease and faceplant into the veggie pizza, accidentally swallowing some vegetables. Because we were going to investigate Jane's murder, I picked up another slice of pepperoni from the box and set it on my plate. This counted as homemade since we were eating it at home and off of plates. I thought we were on the case of the missing penis. Haley looked at me and then at Monica and back to me. Besides, aren't the police going to investigate? I have no idea how they classified Jane's death. Ben didn't want to talk about it. I bit into my third slice of pizza. I think we should backburner the severed penis for now. What if the owner is still alive and looking for it? Haley whispered. We have less than 2 weeks before my neighbor gets home. I checked Lakeside Hospital. No one knows anything about a missing penis. I reached out to all of my contacts at other hospitals, and no one has heard of a severed penis. I think the man it belongs to is dead. Since we don't know who he is, or where he is, I vote we work on Jane's case. Surely the police are going to rule her death as a homicide. Monica continued to scroll through the photos. But I still think we should investigate. Let's face it, we have more experience investigating a murder than anyone in the Lakeside PD. She had a point. The PTO murder club was 2-0 while the Lakeside PD was 0-2. Okay, whatever. Haley sounded like she really didn't want to investigate. Where do we start? On our last murder investigation Haley had been kidnapped, so I could understand her reluctance. Tomorrow I'll check her medical records. I hunched my shoulders. That's all I can think to do. I glanced at Haley and then Monica. Any ideas? I don't think anyone murdered her for life insurance, but I'll check to see if she had a life insurance policy and who was her beneficiary. Life insurance doesn't pay out if the death was the result of suicide, murder, or terrorism. Now, accidents are a whole different ball game. Any chance it was an accident? I shrugged. I couldn't tell how she died. All I saw was that little trickle of blood on her left ear. I didn't see any bruises or injection marks or large amounts of blood. Think we should wait until the coroner determines the cause of death. It does seem suspicious that she would call you for a secret meeting and coincidentally die of natural causes. Haley wiped her hands on a paper towel. I'll poke around Bee Cave Elementary and see if I can find something. We should look through her house. I remembered the note. I reached behind me to my work tote hanging on the back of my kit Chen chair and pulled out the note. I found this. I handed it to Monica. Her eyes scanned the page. Slowly, she turned to me. Next time, lead with this. What does it say? Haley reached for the note. She read it and her eyes turned huge. That's it, you're moving in with me. No, I'm fine here. Probably, I was. Damon installed a new state-of-the-art security system a couple of weeks ago. As soon as I figure out how to turn it on, Max and I will be completely safe. I'll text Bautista and have him walk you through it. Monica's thumbs moved over her phone at lightning speed. It was like she had bionic thumbs. I glanced down at my thumbs. I wanted bionic thumbs. Was there some thumb typing class I could take? Still, I don't know if a security system is enough. Any good hitman or, hit person should know how to disarm a security system. Haley sipped her Bordeaux. I hope not. I didn't think Haley would ever understand. This is my house and I'm staying. I won't let anyone run me out of my own house. Again. It was all I had and I wasn't leaving. A few weeks ago, I'd had to move in with Damon because my house Hadn't been safe, but I wasn't going to let that happen again. Haley shook her head. Since you won't budge on the issue, I'm hiring someone to watch you. She held up a hand to stop the protest she knew was coming. If you don't say yes, I'm hiring someone to burn your house down, kidnap you, and force you to live with me. Both Monica and I gawked at Haley. Monica recovered first. That's a lot of felonies you're confessing to. Just FYI. Haley folded her arms. I'm prepared to do whatever it takes to keep Mustang safe. Okay, one bodyguard only, and he or she has to keep their distance. I don't want Max finding out, because it will scare him. I shook my head. Haley had me backed into a corner and I wasn't sure how she'd done it. Haley pulled out her phone and her thumbs whizzed over the screen, typing at lightning speed. Did everyone have bionic thumbs but me? I should probably have been worried about someone being in town to kill me, but I couldn't work up the energy. Even after finding out that David had actually hired the other two hitmen, persons, who'd been supposed to kill me, it still felt so unreal. I like to think that I'm likable. I mean, well, David doesn't like me, and okay, my boss isn't that fond of me. And possibly all of the people who pull out in front of me probably don't like me, but that's not a loss since I don't like them either. Come to think of it, no one at the DMV likes me, and the entire intensive care unit staff at work hates me, and then there's Phyllis Neighbors, who really hates me. What's wrong? Haley put her arm around me. You look like you just lost your best friend. Don't worry. We won't let anything happen to you. Monica hugged me from the other side. I was just mentally tallying up all the people who don't like me. Don't get me wrong, this really didn't bother me, but it was good to keep a mental list. I just hadn't expected the list to be so long. We still love you. Haley planted a loud, smacking kiss on my cheek. No matter what Kathy Newman or Jojo Lamsel say, I'd forgotten about them. If all of the people who didn't like me came together and organized, I might be in some real trouble. And Eleanor Morales and Meredith Jensch are evil bitches. No one cares what they think. Monica waved a dismissive hand. So are the entire Hooten family. They can't prove that your green bean casserole killed their Uncle Smitty. It was a Jell-O salad. I added the green beans for texture. Back when I'd cooked, people hadn't understood my creative genius. I wasn't afraid to mix just about anything together and call it a casserole or a salad. Of all the people who hated me, I felt like the Hootens were actually justified. Uncle Smitty had been struck by lightning a couple of times, but it might have been my green bean Jell-O salad that finally took him down. On the positive side, because of the lightning, he occasionally thought he was a Labrador Retriever and chased squirrels around the neighborhood. The Christmas block party was never the same without him. And Phyllis Neighbors really hates you. Haley's face screwed up. I'm afraid she's turned the Junior League against you. How will you make it through life with the hatred of the Junior League breathing down your neck? Monica did her best snooty rich people voice, which sounded a lot like Scarlett O'Hara. Since I equated Junior League with crack whore, it really wasn't that much of a loss. I'll put on a brave face and cross my fingers that the Junior League will someday find it in their hearts to forgive me. Would y'all stop? Haley grinned. I guess now's a bad time to tell you that I'm now vice president of the Lakeside Junior League. As long as you keep the wine flowing, we're prepared to overlook that teeny tiny flaw. Monica dropped her arms. My front door flew open and my landlady, Astrid Petrie, blew in on a cold gust of wind and an eerie layer of fog. Monica leaned in close. How did she do that? One side of Astrid's feather headdress got tangled in all of her silver necklaces, so she took a moment to unravel feathers from silver. No idea. I think she had some sort of door opener fog machine thing installed in the door jamb, but I can't find it. Trust me, I've been looking. Why is she dressed like a Native American? Haley looked like she couldn't quite believe what she was seeing. I bet that full feather headdress is really heavy. It can't be heavier than the 100 pounds of turquoise and silver necklaces around her neck. Monica shook her head like she also didn't believe what she was seeing. I'm with you on the necklaces. I hunched my shoulders. Surely they knew by now that there really wasn't an explanation for Astrid. She took one of THO's ancestry DNA tests and found out that she's 2% Native American. Now she insists on being called Chaveo, which she says means spirit warrior, but I think it means crazy white lady who dresses up as a Native American. It's offensive. I'm not Native American, but I'm offended. Monica looked horrified. It took a lot to offend and horrify Monica. I've come to invite you to our medicine wheel drum circle tomorrow night. Astrid swept her hand around the room, and I hoped she wasn't inviting all of our kids too. None of them even looked up from the Xbox. I had a feeling that nuclear war couldn't pull them away from gaming and pizza. Drum circle. Haley glanced at me and lowered her voice. What happened to the seances? Yeah, she left her spirit guide Sebastian Sidebottom for her Native American heritage. Good news, there's no more seances with crystal skulls. But the bad news is that now they beat drums around a bonfire in the backyard. At least they were getting out of the house. I always seemed to be busy on drum circle night. Funny how that worked out. She's trying to convert her seance room into a sweat lodge, but she's having trouble with the city permits. Thank God for small favors, Haley whispered around her perfect hostess smile. We will summon the spurts to bless us with good crops for the spring. The 20 or so silver bangle bracelets clattered as Astrid raised her arm. You will join us. The drum circle is all about BA. Lands. Crops. Monica leaned into me. Since when does she grow crops? Your mistake is that you're thinking Astrid is logical and sane. I shook my head. Let it go. I heard that. Astrid pointed to me. At least she no longer used her cane. She hadn't needed it to walk, she just used it to thwack people over the head, usually me. Is that veggie pizza? Oh God, free food. Now she would never leave. Haley jumped up and pulled out a chair for Astrid. I didn't fault Haley. Good manners had been drummed into her since infancy. I tried to blame her parents, but they were good people who owned several Chick-fil-A's. They gave me free food, so I was willing to overlook many things. Haley went to the cabinet to the left of the sink where I kept my dishes and got Astrid a plate. She put 2 slices of veggie pizza on the plate. Here you go, Ms. Astrid. What's going on here? Are you investigating the death of the person Mustang found today? Astrid bit into her pizza. Her name was Jane Doe. I covertly covered the note with my name on it and tried to slip it under the pizza box. What are you hiding? Her brown squinty eyes got squintier. Or maybe it was the huge rhinestone Coke bottle glasses she wore that made them look squintier. Nothing. Which was the absolute wrong thing to say. I would have clamped my hand over my mouth, but one was covering the note and the other was holding a slice of pizza. Show it to me. She was good at issuing command. DS. If I didn't show her, she'd just pry my hand up and grab the note. She was older than dirt, but she had very sharp fingernails. I didn't think I could take her. She had evil on her side. I lifted my hand and she picked up the note. She read it and then looked at me over the top of the paper. You're moving in with me. Another command. I should have felt good about my sudden popularity. After all, there seemed to be a mile-long line of people who wanted me to move in with them. No, thank you. I'm fine here. I had a feeling this was about to get ugly. Astrid didn't like when her commands were met with resistance. It wasn't a request. You're moving in with me and that's final. She tossed the paper onto the table. No, really. I'm good here. I have a state-of-the-art security system. I was fighting an uphill battle. I wasn't ready to call it quits, but I was getting tired. Fine, I didn't want to have to do this, but you forced my hand. Astrid reached into the v-neck of her deerskin poncho-like shirt and pulled out a smartphone. She touched an icon and pressed the phone to her ear. Oh God, was she calling her attorney to evict me? Max and I would be homeless. I held a hand up. Wait. Too late. Astrid looked down her nose at me. A man answered the phone. The voice had a Spanish accent. Was that Damon? Oh crap. Now he would never let me live alone. Did you know that Mustang received a note telling her that someone was in town to kill her? Astrid didn't wait for a reply. She ended the call. And then dialed someone else. She repeated the same sentence and hung up. Unless I've completely misjudged Damon Rodriguez and my nephew Ben, they are both racing over here right now to protect you from whoever would like to kill you. Since they are both alpha males who secretly believe that a woman can't take care of herself, they will probably kill each other, trying to protect you. In the event that they don't kill each other, they will both be moving in and probably won't let you leave the house. If you'd like to keep your independence so that you may come and go as you please, you've moving in with me. Monica's mouth dropped open and then she regained her composure. That was brilliant. I did not see that coming. It was sneaky, manipulative, and played on Mustang's fear of losing her independence. She held her hand up to Astrid for a high five. Amazing. Astrid eyed Monica's hand like it was dog crap and then shrugged and high-fived her. We strong women have to stick together or men will think they can control us. She turned to me. Gather your things. It would be best to leave before they both show up. Tonight I'd been manipulated by both Haley and Astrid. I was definitely off my game. M5. Mustang. I know you're in there. It was Ben banging on Astrid's front door. Mustang. Open the door and let me in. That was Damon also pounding on Astrid's front door. They sound mad. Think we should let them in. Dulce, Astrid's housekeeper, plopped down next to me on the third from the bottom step of Astrid's grand staircase. It sounds like they're going to break it down. I know you're right, but I don't look forward to all of the yelling. Thank God, Max had conked out from a pizza carb overload and was sound asleep upstairs in the Hopi Indian doll room. I'd had to move close to 100 dolls off the bed so he could sleep. Believe it or not, there was more than one Native American doll room in Astrid's house. I got to sleep in another one. It was sad to say, but I missed the days when Astrid was just plain crazy. Instead of crazy and obsessed with Native American culture. Now her house looked like a cross between a John Wayne spaghetti western and a dusty archaeological dig. In the living room, instead of furniture, there was a trio of gaudy, sequin-bedazzled teepees, and there were pottery shards strewn around like a rock star had been on a 2-day drug binge and busted up his hotel room. Mustang. I'm not going away until you open this door. Ben sounded very determined. Me neither. Damon sounded equally determined. I guess I don't have a choice. One corner of my mouth turned up. As soon as I opened that door, I knew it wasn't going to be pretty. This was all Astrid's fault. Where's Astrid? She should be the one who has to deal with this mess. Her royal weirdness went to bed. She could sleep through a tornado. Dulce St. Good and stretched. I know because once I recorded some actual tornado sounds from YouTube and piped them into her room thinking that it would be funny if she thought a tornado was coming. She didn't even stir. I thought she was dead, but I didn't want to check in case she was murdered. I didn't want the police to find my fingerprints on the body. I watch TV, I know how forensics works. That was smart. I pulled my phone out of my back jeans pocket. It's only 8:15. That's kinda early for bed. Dulce ground out a sigh. She goes to bed early these days so she can greet the sun. What does that mean? I had a feeling that greeting the sun wasn't a good thing. You'll find out at sunrise tomorrow. Trust me, if you know what's good for you, you'll stay in your room. Dulce yawned. I know it's early, but I'm going to bed too. She climbed the stairs. I was all alone to deal with my two gentlemen callers. I rolled my eyes and opened the door. Both Damon and Ben glared down at me. If it weren't for the glares I would have laughed. Both men were over 6 feet tall and had broad shoulders. At the moment, they were both trying to squeeze through the door frame at the same time. It appeared to be some sort of contest and whoever got through the door first would be declared manliest. They both tried to muscle through, but they were still stuck. It was like watching a dog with a stick that was too long try to bring it into the house. I glanced at the time on my phone. How long would it take them to figure out that if they both turned sideways they could both get through the door without a problem? If I were a nicer person, I'd have offered a suggestion, but since they were both still glaring at me, they were on their own. I went back to the third step and sat. How could you not have mentioned the note? Ben's blue eyes held none of his normal aw shucks, ma'am attitude. Now they were just blazing mad. You didn't ask. Probably, I should have trod lightly, but I wasn't known for my light treading skills. I hate to agree with Jameson, but you should have mentioned the note. Damon turned slightly sideways and muscled through the front door first. I put my hands together to clap but decided it wasn't in my best interest. Your life is in danger. Damon managed to sound both afraid for me and angry as hell. I can't believe I'm siding with Rodriguez, but he's right, your life is in danger. Ben's jaw was set and he managed to speak without moving his lips. If this whole cop thing went south and he lost his trust fund, he could definitely make it in the ventriloquism business. Was there still a market for that? With CGI and robots, a ventriloquism movie career might be out. What do you have to say for yourself? Damon crossed his arms over his broad chest and glared at me. I stood, walked to the open door, and closed it. I had no idea what to say. All I wanted was to go to my room, Clear off 1,000. ND native. American dolls, lie down, and watch some mind-numbing TV. Ben reached behind him and pulled out a pair of handcuffs. He clicked one of the bracelets on my left wrist. Mustang Ridges, you're under arrest. For interfering with an ongoing investigation. You have the right to remain silent. This is ridiculous. I'm practically under house arrest here. Don't you think that arresting me while I'm under house arrest is overkill? I threw up my right hand in protest, because my left was cuffed. Besides, where are you going to lock me up? Lakeside doesn't have a jail. Are you planning on chaining me to the Lakeside Library's overnight book drop? In Lakeside, we're all about commercialism. Our city hall, police station, and library all share a building that's located right smack dab in the middle of the Lakeside Galleria. It's very convenient. You can vote, pay your parking tickets, check out a book on how to get out of paying your parking tickets, and do your Christmas shopping all in the same place. I'm tempted to lock you up in my house. Ben unlocked the cuff but put a possessive hand on my back. 2 seconds ago he was arresting me. And now he wanted to play the role of my boyfriend? Not a chance. I sat back down on the stair. I know what I did was wrong, but I didn't tell either of you about the note because I knew you would act just like this. I pointed to the handcuffs that Ben was stuffing into his back jeans pocket. I need to find out who's in town to kill me. Damon still had his arms folded as he stared down at me. I'm in law enforcement. That's my job. Ben stood right next to Damon and folded his arms too. I could tell that Ben was fighting back the urge to say, me too. Time for the mom voice. I know that you're both just trying to protect me, but I can take care of myself. Ben's jaw went rigid. No, you can't. A few months ago you got shot. And then you blew up the VFW hall. Technically, I didn't blow up the VFW hall. It was Bautista. I didn't know why I felt the need to point this out, but I did. Ben's face turned a reddish-purple color and I thought his head might actually explode. Damon put a hand on Ben's arm and then sat next to me. I'm worried about you, and I want to keep you and Max safe. That's all. Sometimes you make me crazy. The feeling's mutual. I'd been dreading this confrontation, not that I don't like confrontation, I do, but these men rarely listen to me because they were too busy trying to micromanage my life. Testosterone should come with a warning label. Ben squashed in on my other side. I felt like I was in the middle airplane seat, crushed between two enormous-chested football players. Their elbows were digging into my upper arms. I leaned forward, resting my hands on my knees. Was Jane murdered? I didn't look back at Ben. I wondered if they'd noticed that I'd changed the subject. Who's Jane? Damon sat up straight. Wait, why do you think she was murdered? Mustang found Jane Doe, spelled D-O-U-G-H, dead. That's where she found the note. Ben's voice held a whole lot of I know more than you do. How does this keep happening to you? Damon asked. I don't find dead bodies. I've been with the DEA for almost 10 years and I never find dead bodies. Around you, they seem to fall from the sky. He sounded a lot like Ricky Ricardo when he was yelling at Lucy. Jane didn't fall out of the sky. I found her dead behind the wheel of her car. She called me this morning and asked to meet with me. She said she had something important to tell me, but she wanted to do it face to face. I tried not to sound too blasé about it, but I'd told the story so many times. Where was the note? Ben sounded slightly less angry. Under her left thigh. I moved down a step. My back was starting to hurt from bending over. You moved the body. Ben was back to being 100% pissed off. I shot him an offended look over my shoulder. No. She fell over and I happened to see the note. I should have probably made up some story about how it fell out of the car. Now that I thought about it, Ben really did have a case for me tampering with evidence. Since I was already in trouble, I pressed on. Has the coroner given you a cause of death for Jane? Ben's eyes narrowed to slits and his whole body went taut. He took several beats to glare down at me. No, the coroner hasn't examined the body yet and probably won't get to it until early next week. He took a couple of deep, calming breaths. The only indication of cause of death was a small trickle of blood on her left earlobe. We can't determine cause of death yet, so that's all we have to go on. She could have accidentally choked or had a stroke or a heart attack. If the body doesn't show trauma, it could mean she died of natural causes. Damon sounded like he was trying to be reasonable in the face of the unreasonable. I turned my head the other way to look up at him. Don't you find it odd that she calls me out of the blue, wants to meet because whatever she has to tell me can't be said over the phone, and then dies less than an hour after calling me? I knew coincidences happened, but this was more than a little hard to swallow. I admit that it does sound strange. Damon reluctantly nodded. But that doesn't mean you need to investigate. Leave that to the professionals. That's right. We're on it. Ben scooted down a step and put his arm around my shoulders. Damon glanced down at Ben's arm like it was dog poop on the bottom of his shoe. He scooted down and wrapped his own arm around my waist. I felt like the rope in a game of tug-of-war. I could promise them I wouldn't snoop, but we all knew that would be a lie. You both could help me find out what happened to Jane. Damon and Ben exchanged a look. That's not going to happen, Ben bit out. No, Damon spit out. I stood because I was tired of being sandwiched between two alpha males. I was not deterred. Let's just say for argument's sake that she didn't die of natural causes. And that the blood on her ear was her only injury. What could have caused it? For that matter, how could an ear injury kill her? I paced. That was usually Haley's job, but it was nice for once to be in a room large enough for me to pace. Ben weighed the question. If we rule out natural causes, there are still several other possibilities. She could have been poisoned or overdosed on something, and there are lots of other ways she could have died that wouldn't have been visible. We didn't examine the body. I mean, we did. But we didn't remove any of her clothes. They'll be bagged for examination at the coroner's office. Damon sighed long and hard. I want to go on record as saying this is a waste of time until we have the cause of death, but if we suppose that the blood is a result of her means of death, I can only think of one wound that would cause such little blood. Ben stroked his jaw and nodded. It makes sense. I waited for one of them to elaborate, and waited, and waited. What? Ben stood. Something small, thin, and sharp pierced the eardrum and went right into the brain. He turned back to Damon. Like a sharp metal skewer. Damon nodded. Or an ice pick. Wouldn't it take a lot of force to penetrate the skull? That was a question I'd never thought would come out of my mouth. Not really. Haven't you ever seen The Walking Dead? That Carol is always saving Rick's butt. Ben mimicked stabbing someone in the head. She stabs zombies and keeps on going. I really shouldn't have had to point out to a cop that The Walking Dead was fiction. No, if I want to watch brain-dead people running into each other, I hang out at the roundabout at the Lakeside Galleria. The seniors don't seem to understand that if you're in the roundabout you have the right of way and don't need to yield to the cars entering the roundabout. Tell me about it. There are wrecks there daily. Ben rolled his eyes. Why don't they install an old-fashioned traffic light? It really would cut down on all of those car crashes. Ben shrugged. What else would we have to do? All of those wrecks. Give us something to investigate. It's not like we have actual crime here. Both Damon and I turned our heads very slowly to stare at Ben. This is like the Bermuda Triangle of crime, Damon said. There's more crime here than anywhere, only it's all white collars so everyone looks the other way. He sounded frustrated. Ben threw up his hands. Okay, there's crime but we're not allowed to investigate it. I knew it. Y'all look the other way. I felt somewhat vindicated that the police knew there was crime but did nothing about it. That's not true. Ben thought about it for a minute. It's somewhat true. Chief Stanford takes over everything we investigate. He doesn't let us do much. It sounded lame, and by the look on his face, he knew it. Back to Jane. You said the blood could have been caused by a stab wound to the ear. Could that really kill her? Once, at Lakeside Hospital, we'd had a man with a giant nail through his left temple. Somehow he'd accidentally nail-gunned himself in the head. He lived. People said that he ended up minus a few IQ points, but I say that anyone who accidentally nail-guns himself in the head didn't start out with all that many points. Yes, it would kill, Ben said. The damage to the brain isn't necessarily what would have killed her. If she was stabbed in the ear, she probably would have bled out. There are several arteries that could have been nicked. The basilar, internal carotid, or external carotid are all arteries that if punctured would have resulted in death in a matter of minutes. He sounded like he was examining the idea and finding it plausible. How do you know all of this? Not that I was an expert of human anatomy, but I'd been billing treatments and surgeries on body parts for the better part of 10 years. I had some knowledge of anatomy, but clearly not as much as a police officer. I was pre-med at UT. I changed my mind in my first year of medical school. Doctors work long hours. They may get paid well, but it isn't worth the 18-hour days. And I didn't like all of that blood. Ben's face turned a little gray. I can see how that would be a problem, I said. Okay, so a sharp metal instrument through the ear. I guess that's some place to start. Oh no, you're not going to investigate Jane's death. Damon shook his head. No way. You're out of the snooping business. Had he just given me a command? I'm sorry. Did you just order me to not investigate the death of my friend? Jane and I had been more acquaintances than friends, but he didn't need to know that. Damon looked to Ben for help. Ben just smiled and shook his head, and then he turned his smile on me. I know I can't stop you, but you're on your own. F6. For some reason Chris Pratt was massaging my shoulders. The pressure was a little too hard, but otherwise it was nice. A bomb exploded and my eyes popped open. At first I didn't recognize the huge bedroom with all of the Native American dolls staring down at me. I glanced at the wall of windows across from my bed. It was still dark outside. Another bomb went off and rattled the house. I almost fell out of bed. Were we under attack? I shook my head. They weren't bombs. They were unbelievably loud. Drum beats. Shrill chanting, part Slavic poetry reading, part cat screeching in pain. Cut through the air. I clamped my hands over my ears. The chanting got louder. My hands did nothing to drown out the noise, so I picked up pillows and held them to my ears. Because they were luxurious down pillows that felt like fluffy clouds suspending my head at the perfect angle while sleeping, they were completely useless at saving my ears from the assault they were now undergoing. The chanting got even louder. Max burst into my room with his hands over his ears. What's going on? No idea, I yelled over the chanting. I glanced at the clock on the nightstand. It was all of 5:22 in the morning. Next to the clock was a stack of little orange foam tubes that I could have sworn weren't there when I went to bed. The orange tubes were earplugs. I stuffed one in my right ear and handed a pair to Max. Put these in your ears. He nodded and stuffed them in his ears. That's better, but I can still hear that loud screaming. Did Ms. Astrid's cat get run over or something? We should take him to the vet. I put in the other earplug. I don't think Astrid has a cat. If she did, I certainly wouldn't blame the creature for screeching its head off. If I had to live with Astrid, I'd do the same. Wait, I looked around. Crapola, I was living with Astrid. Was this the greeting the sun that Dulce had mentioned? Did this happen every morning? This time of year, the sun didn't rise until almost 7:30. Did it take 2 hours to greet the sun? Oh God, was this going to happen every single morning? Max headed back to his room, apparently intending to go back to sleep. I wished I had his ability to drown out excessive noise. I needed to find the source of this auditory abomination and kill it. Sure. I would probably be arrested for murder. Just in case, I grabbed my phone and hit the record icon. I waited a good 5 minutes before turning it off. This would be my defense. Relatively sure that I'd be acquitted, I went in search of the noise. I got all the way to the grand staircase and then I made one of the biggest mistakes of my life. I looked down into the front entryway. 5 female octogenarians, wearing nothing but Native American feather headdresses, bobbed and gyrated around an electric heater lit up with holographic flames. Astrid, at least I thought it was Astrid, since her headdress was so much bigger than everyone else's, stood behind 2 enormous drums and beat out what I supposed was a rhythm, only it was the least rhythmical rhythm I'd ever heard. It was definitely not something that inspired dancing, which didn't seem to bother the dancers, who clearly had some other rhythm playing in their heads. I slammed my eyes shut and turned around. Dulce had warned me not to go downstairs, and now I'd need to have my eyes removed. And possibly the part of my brain that records the images seen by my eyes. I told you not to leave your room until the ceremony was over, Dulce yelled from the doorway of her room. I took out the earplugs so I could hear her better. I forgot, and now I'm going to have to live with those images forever. I kept shaking my head like that would jog loose the memory so I could throw it out. Why are they naked? I tried not to think about it, but all I did was think about it even more. Dulce pointed in the general direction of the front entryway. You think there's a reason that makes that okay? Good point. I hoped Dulce got paid $1 million a year for putting up with Astrid, but she probably didn't. It was worse when they did it outside. The only space large enough that wasn't covered by trees was in the front yard. You would have heard it too, but the guest house is soundproofed. You lucked out that the previous Owner used it as a recording studio. I wish I were that lucky. As it is, the neighbors sued for mental distress, so then her royal weirdness had to bring it inside. Dulce held up a long tube of fireplace matches. I vote we burn this place down. You in? I actually took a couple of beats to think about it. No, I really wanted to say yes, but my going to jail would leave Max either in his father's care or in the care of the state. All things considered, Child Protective Services would be preferable. Is that why there's a giant patch of burned grass in the front yard? Yeah, that was before the Lakeside Fire Department stepped in and requested strongly that Astrid no longer build a real fire. She shrugged a shoulder. I liked the real fire. It gave me hope that Astrid would trip over a rock or something and fall into it. She shook her head. Sadly, that didn't happen. I was just now noticing that Dulce had some serious pyromania issues. We might actually be safer in our own little guest house. I knew we'd sleep better. We could sneak back now. Did contract killers get up this early? Surely they were late sleepers. Dulce smoothed out some non-existent wrinkles on her black pants and motioned me into her room. She closed the door behind me. Her room must have been soundproof too, because the noise pretty much died away. It was even better than wearing earplugs. This is wonderful. I'd never really appreciated silence until I was assaulted with shrill chanting and thundering drum beats. Why don't you take my bed? I'll go get Max and the two of you can sleep until a decent hour. I've got to go downstairs and get breakfast ready. For the palest Native Americans in history. I'll have your bedrooms soundproofed and dedalled by tonight. Dulce motioned me toward the bed. Go ahead. It took me a while to adjust to her weirdness's schedule. Thank you so much. I melted onto the bed. How can you have all of that work done by tonight? I stifled a yawn. It's amazing what I can do with Astrid's AMX Centurion card. I just wave it around and magic happens. Dulce smiled. Last month when Astrid went on a trip to Sedona, I hired a cleaning service to take care of the house, had dinner flown in from Paris, and binge-watched Psych. I think Gus is hot. I didn't know she'd gone to Sedona. Not that I particularly cared. Dulce laughed. The best part about her newfound Native American heritage is that it's not hers. I stifled another yawn. I don't understand. She had me mail in her DNA kit. As a joke, I had Curtis, the mail carrier, swab his cheek and I switched the samples. Dulce shook her head. As she smiled. It's the little things in life that make it worth living. I looked around. Her room had been spared the Native American remodel. I agree that it's the little things, but are we better off now than we were when she just had those stupid seances? Dulce scratched the back of her head. Now that you mention it, it might not have been the best idea. We should put our heads together this evening and come up with a culture that's quiet, boring, and doesn't involve drums. I could always tell her that the DNA company screwed up the samples. I thought she was missing the point, but at the moment, I was all for anything that didn't involve drums. Sounds like a plan. She closed the door behind her. A few minutes later, Max threw open the door, ran into the room, and slammed the door behind him. It's so quiet in here. He glanced around the room. And there are no dolls. I vote we move into this room. I pulled the covers back and nodded to the spot beside me. He jumped in and didn't even comment on how he was too old to sleep with his dear old mom. If I was lucky, maybe I'd get a hug late. At least Astrid's craziness was good for something. 7. Several hours later, I sat in my office and did my best to look busy. It's harder than it sounds. Here's the thing, I run such a tight ship that there isn't that much left for me to do. I check over the daily close log from the day before, balance it against the payments, and if that checks out, I'm free for the rest of the day. On the 1st of every month, I give my boss, Larry Pappies, a spreadsheet full of numbers that I'm sure he doesn't understand. He's never asked questions. In fact, whenever I meet with him, I get the impression that it takes all of his concentration to not stare at my boobs. I know this is borderline sexual harassment, but I don't want to turn him into human resources. It's not that I like Larry or want him to stare at my breasts, but I can manipulate him. For example, one time he thought I was doing a wonderful job and that I was overworked, so he gave me a couple of days off so that I could recharge my battery. If I turned him in, they'd fire him and maybe replace him with a woman. We women aren't so easily manipulated. Manipulate man is in the first part of the word. I stacked the copies of the few medical records I'd been able to find on Jane and shoved them into my leather work tote. Because we were flush with copy paper that I'd stolen from pediatrics last week, I'd made 3 copies of the medical records so Haley, Monica, and I could go through them individually. LLY. My cell phone buzzed and vibrated on my desk. It was Haley. I picked up the phone and hit answer. Hello. I'm at the school, Haley whispered. Why are you whispering? I pulled a fingernail file out of my desk drawer and went to work on a hangnail. I really needed a manicure. Unfortunately, my car needed gas even more. I'm copying Jane's personnel file. Principal Dean is in a meeting. I'm supposed to be making copies of 4th grade math homework. Haley sounded stressed. Covert ops wasn't her thing. I'm proud of you. I know that breaking any rule is hard on you. This was way out of her comfort zone. I'm pretty proud of myself for thinking of it. Haley sounded very pleased and a little nauseated. Have you found anything interesting in her file? It would be so helpful if there was a note in the file that said, in the event of Jane's murder, the killer is. I knew it wasn't likely, but a girl can hope. Sorry, no great revelations. It looks normal to me, but I think you and Monica should take a look. Haley shuffled some papers. Monica and I are meeting at Jane's house at 3:30 this afternoon. I don't suppose you can join us. I can make that happen. I'm salaried, so I come and go as I please. Usually, I try to set a good example for my employees, but my boss is out of town, so who cares if I take off early every now and then? Good. I'll text you the address, Haley whispered. I have to go. Talk to you later. She hung up. At 3:45, I pulled up to the address Haley had given me and parked behind Monica's Honda Civic. I turned off the engine and stepped out of the car. I don't understand. How is this her address? It was an empty lot. Haley threw up her hands. This is the address on her personnel file. Why would she lie about that? Lakeside ISD didn't care where its teachers, especially substitutes, lived. It seemed like an unnecessary lie. Not that I'm opposed to unnecessary lies, but this one had the potential to complicate Jane's life. Surely Lakeside ISD had sent her some mail and it had been returned. Wouldn't someone have asked her about it? I reached into the open window of my Porsche Cayenne and pulled out my work tote. I grabbed the stack of medical records and shuffled through to the patient information page and scanned it. The address was blank. I rolled my eyes. How hard was it for admitting to get an address? Once, they'd let a patient leave without getting any information from him. Not even his name. When I asked them about it, they said he must have just walked out. I pointed out that he'd had 2 broken legs and that someone had needed to wheel him out. They hadn't seemed too concerned about the hospital not getting paid on some very expensive procedures. The address is blank on her medical records. Haley frowned in confusion. How is that possible? I held up a hand. Don't get me started. Monica pulled out her smartphone and touched an icon. Jane Doe used to have a life insurance policy with Global Life, which owns my company. I looked it up earlier. Let me see if we have an address on file. She scrolled and scrolled. Here it is. It looks like she had her mail sent to the UPS store next to the Papa Murphy's Pizza. The UPS store moved, Haley said. It's now next to that new frozen yogurt place we hate that used to be the gyro place we loved. She leaned against the hood of her Tesla SUV. Her SUV was bright and shiny and needed to be plugged in. Once, we took it to Dallas and it nearly ran out of power. Electric vehicles were great in Austin and the surrounding areas that had electric car parking, but once you got out of Austin's tech bubble, there weren't electric car chargers in every parking lot. I guess this is worth seeing, that awful frozen yogurt place, Monica said, even though it makes me miss the gyro place. Let's head over to the UPS store and see if we can convince them to tell us where Jane's mail is sent. I'll have Anis pick up the kids from school and take them back to my house. Haley was so generous. I threw an arm around Haley and pulled her in for a one-arm hug. Thanks for sharing your nanny with us. Yeah, thanks. Monica put an arm around Haley too. You're welcome. Haley patted my hand and Monica's. 10 minutes later, we parked next to each other in front of the UPS store. Monica hooked her purse on her shoulder and took the lead. I got this. Wasi. H and learn. She walked up to the counter and dug in her purse and came up with a small, black leather wallet. She flipped it open and showed a badge of some kind to the pimply-faced kid behind the counter. I'm Monica Garza, an investigator with Global Life. I need to see any paperwork you have on Jane Doe, box number 2166. She sounded so official. It was impressive. I wanted a badge. Is that badge real? It doesn't look real. There's no name or badge number on it. It looks like something you ordered off the internet. Just our luck, a smart and detail-oriented teenager. It was time for Plan B. I stuck out my chest and smiled at him. I need to mail something irregularly shaped. Do you think you could help me? It's in the back of my car. All I had in the back of my car were 5 boxes of canned goods I'd picked up from Lakeside Elementary last week from our canned food drive. I'd been meaning to drop them off at the Austin Food Bank. Lakeside had a food bank, but since there weren't any hungry people in Lakeside, the canned goods rotted on the shelves. I shot Monica a look that said to check the computer for Jane's info, while I kept Mr. Observant Teen occupied. Monica nodded. I led him out to my car and clicked the button on the key fob that opened the back. You want to mail boxes of canned goods? He glanced back at me. Why? I don't have time to drive them all the way over to Austin. I'd like to mail them. I threw my shoulders back and looked down my nose at him, doing my best impression of a snotty rich bitch. My time is precious and I just don't have the time to waste driving into Austin. I'd like to mail them. He shrugged and pulled a tape measure out of his back pocket. He measured the box. We could send them ground. That's going to be your cheapest option. He picked up the first box. I glanced at Monica, who was still typing away on the computer inside the store. I put a hand on his sleeve. Oh no, I want them there tomorrow. And I'd like to mail them individually. I don't understand. You want to mail the boxes individually? He put the box down and stared at me. Aren't they all going to the same place? Yes. I smiled my I am stupid but rich smile. But I'd like to mail each can individually. He opened his mouth to say something, thought better of it, and closed his mouth. He pulled out a can, measured it, and set it back in the box. So, you want me to box up and mail every single can? His tone held a whole lot of you idiot. Yes. I kept grinning. Genius, right? That way no one has to lift a heavy box full of cans. He shook his head and went back to measuring cans. I glanced at Monica and Haley. Haley stuffed some sheets of paper in her Hermes purse as they headed for the door. You know what? I bet I can get my housekeeper to take the canned goods tomorrow. I think that's a better plan, don't you? I took the can out of his hand and closed the rear door. Thanks for your help. No problem. He shook his head again as he walked back into the store. I had a feeling that I wasn't the dumbest person he'd dealt with, but I had to be in the top 5. Haley and Monica joined me at my car. We got the address, Monica said. Should we meet there? Let's drop your cars off at Walgreens and ride in mine. I nodded in the direction of the UPS store. If we leave them here, I'm afraid he'll get suspicious and he'll figure out we just played him. If he calls the police, Ben will come, run your license plate numbers, and then yell at me. You're right, it isn't safe to leave our cars here. Follow me to Walgreens. Monica slid behind the wheel of her Civic. 5 minutes later, Monica took shotgun in Pepette and Haley climbed into the back seat. I started the car. Where am I going? Haley shuffled some papers. 1405 Watershed Road. Monica turned around to face Haley. Do you recognize that address? Through the rearview mirror, I could see Haley shaking her head. No, I don't even recognize the road. The mystery of Jane Doe had just gotten even more mysterious. Haley knew every street in Lakeside. She'd been born here and had grown up here. Her ancestors had owned most of the land surrounding Lake Travis and had settled Lakeside. It could be another fake address. Monica turned back around and pulled up the navigation menu on my car's touch screen. She typed in the address, and a route popped up. I followed the directions and pulled up to a very tall, very private residence. The once manicured grounds were overgrown. I got out of the car and walked to the overly ornate black iron gate. With all of the overgrown trees and shrubs, all I could see of the house in the distance were a couple of Gothic spires. Surely not. Lakeside didn't have Gothic spires. This wasn't New Orleans, and we didn't have any plantation homes in Lakeside, but I could have sworn those were Gothic spires. Monica tested the gate. It was locked. Haley stood on my other side. It's odd. By all appearances, this land, or at least the entrance, is overgrown, and it's supposed to look unused. But it's not. She pointed to the brand new camera pointed down on us and presumably recording us right now. I waved and blew a kiss to the camera. I couldn't help it. And this fence is well maintained. Who keeps the gate freshly painted? But lets the landscaping go. Monica stood on her tippy toes, like that. Would give her a better vantage point to see through all of the foliage. Someone who has something to hide. If it weren't for the shiny clean gate, I'd say this place was abandoned. I scanned the fence for a possible way to climb it, but it was all slippery wrought iron and it had to be close to 20 feet tall. And we were being recorded. Let's go. This is a dead end, I added, in case there were microphones to go with that camera. It's over. What? Monica glanced at me. I turned away from the camera and shook my head and put my index finger to my lips in the universal signal to keep quiet. Monica nodded. She grabbed Haley's hand and hauled her back to the car. 5 minutes later, we were in line at the Chick-fil-A drive-thru. Haley's family owned most of the Chick-fil-A's in Central and South Texas. So we ate for free. How are we going to get over that gate? I drove up to the window and they handed us our food. Most of the food I ate came from a drive-thru window. That probably wasn't a good thing. Here you go, Lindsay. Haley hung out the car window and handed the girl who was working the window a handful of cash. I saw you and Brandon and Kimber and Jenna all smile, so you each get $100 bill. Lindsay's eyes turned huge. Thanks, Mrs. Hanson. I'll make sure they get their money. Thank you so much. Haley rolled up her window and we pulled into the parking lot of the credit union next door to eat. If they smile, they get $100. Monica turned and shot Haley a big, toothy smile and held out her hand. It's only for employees. My parents are running a new promotion called Smile for Cash. Every time anyone in my family catches them smiling to a customer, the employee gets $100. Haley sipped her Diet Arnold Palmer. So you just carry around spare $100 bills, cool. Monica handed Haley the Southwest chicken salad she always ordered and then she handed me the fried chicken sandwich I always ordered. Look, they upsized our waffle fries. I love Chick-fil-A. The Smile for Cash program has doubled our customer service ratings. It seems to be working, because business is booming. Carefully, Haley opened her salad dressing and poured half of it on her salad. My parents are thinking about expanding into the burger market. What do y'all think about In-N-Out Burger coming to Lakeside? I unwrapped my chicken sandwich. I don't understand the hype about In-N-Out Burger. To hear the California transplants talk, In-N-Out is God's gift to hamburgers. I ate at the In-N-Out in Cedar Park. It tasted like McDonald's. I say if you want a good fast food burger, go to Whataburger. It's a Texas-owned company. I bit into my chicken sandwich. We already have a Whataburger in Lakeside. The Daniels own it. One corner of Monica's mouth turned down at the mention of the Daniels. Everyone hates the Daniels. Both Teddy and Lauralee Daniels suffer from excessive personalities and very little tact. Compared to them, I was ms. tactful. Now that I think about it, you should open an In-N-Out Burger. I'm still a Whataburger fan, but it would be nice to put the Daniels out of business. I don't mind admitting I'm vindictive. Lauralee called me a fat-assed social climbing bitch when I won the PTO presidency from her. To be fair, I'd only run to piss her off, so she had a right to be angry. Back to the case, what's our next move on Jane Doe? Monica asked around the waffle fry in her mouth. I swallowed my bite of chicken sandwich. We need to get into that house. Sounds good to me, Haley said. Since she was only a substitute teacher, did she have another job? Monica looked at me and then at Haley and then back to me. No idea. I hadn't thought of that. But those Gothic spires couldn't have come cheap, not to mention the land. Is there a way to find out? Monica wiped her fingers on a napkin and took her phone out of her purse. I have a couple of apps that should come up with something. They aren't the best info finders, but I don't have a claims case number to attach to the search, so I can't use the ones I use at work. She typed in some information and then scrolled. Looks like she works for an organization called Come On In. She scrolled some more. It lists her job title as Chief Satisfaction Administrator. What does Come On In do? I guessed they could name a company whatever they liked, but Come On In was a terrible company name. Shouldn't the name give an idea about the type of business? Maybe they do adoptions or provide legal advice on immigration. You know, like Come On Into the USA. Haley was grasping at straws. I'm sure Chief Satisfaction Administrator is just a fancy title for receptionist or quality control. We have a chief smile officer and a customer service liaison. At the chick. I tried to change my billing manager title to Queen of Billing, but my boss wouldn't go for it. I think he didn't want to pay for any name tag. Larry Pappy's was cheap, which was why I'd had to steal copy paper from Pediatrics. I can't help if my entire budget goes to Dunkin' Donuts K-Cups. Caffeine is the nectar of the gods. I can't let my employees go uncaffeinated. It's un-American and probably illegal. I like Billing Guru. Haley's eyes lit up. Or Billing Empress. That's awesome. I'm going to push for that. I'll even volunteer to pay for the new name tag. I could see it now, Billing Empress in gold letters on my black name tag. Oh yeah, that was it. Can we get back to the problem at hand? Monica was such a stickler for staying on point. She grinned at me. We need to find out more about. Come on in. That means I have to call Lyle Grinchwald. I rolled my eyes. I did it last time. Can't one of you? Lyle Grinchwald was our PTO treasurer. We went out of our way to not include him in our meetings. He was a CPA who'd actually read the PTO bylaws and tried his hardest to make us follow the rules. If you looked up most boring man in the world in the Guinness Book of World Records, there would be a picture of him. Tomorrow morning, I'd call the Grinch. T8. Next morning, I checked over the close of day report. And damn it, it balanced. I picked up the phone to make the call. I didn't want to make like a man walking to the gallows. I took my time. Lee, Grinchwald and Grinchwald, how may I help you? It was Renata Davenport, their perky receptionist. Or was she the vice PR? President of. Greetings. Job titles were interesting these days. Hey, Renata, it's Mustang. Renata and I have become friends. Occasionally, I call just so she can put me on hold, because they have crazy good on-hold music. It's always 1950s doo-wop. Want me to put you on hold? I could practically hear Renata's finger hovering over the hold button. Maybe later. I need to speak with Lyle. Is he in? Please say no, please. Say no. Yes, but he's on another line. I'll put you on hold. SH Boom came on the line, and then Earth Angel. I was rocking to the groove when all of a sudden Lyle interrupted. Mustang, so good of you to call. Do you have those receipts I need from the Memorial Garden we sponsored that you had installed without my input? Lyle was in the top 10 on my list of people I didn't like. This was quite an accomplishment, because it's a very long list. I'm not calling about the Memorial Garden. I didn't have receipts and we both knew it. I was hoping you could research a company for me. It's a non-profit called Come On In. Why? He drew it out like he was put out. I was sure it would take all of 2 minutes, but clearly, he thought his time was valuable. Silly man. Everyone knew only my time was valuable. They've offered to sponsor the fall carnival. I wasn't even sure what that meant exactly. We do have a fall carnival, that much is true. At the base of every good lie is the truth. How? All of the booths are sponsored by parents. Why do we need an additional sponsor? Lyle was more than a little skeptical. For the entertainment. They want to provide the entertainment. I was queen of the liars. Since I couldn't be queen of billing, it was good to know that I could be queen of something. What sort of entertainment? Lyle was really on his game today. I wished he were more manipulatable. Maybe I needed to be there in person to work my manipulation powers. Then again, I'd have to see Lyle, so it wasn't worth it. I'm not sure. I leaned over and knocked on my open office door. That was the signal for Jack and Melly to urgently need my help. Mustang, help. Melly didn't even turn away from her computer. My computer's on fire. She's a terrible liar. So sorry, I have to go. I'll call you in a couple of days to see what you've found out. I slammed the phone down. Thanks, Melly, I called from my office. I've got your back. Melly typed something. I glanced at her screen. It looked like she was bidding on some shoes on eBay. Good for her. New shoes, or new-to-you shoes, were always a good thing. I wished I had extra money for new-to-me shoes. My cell rang. Unknown caller flashed on the screen. It was probably a telemarketer. I answered anyway. It wasn't like I had anything else to do. Hello. You can't have him. He's mine. I bet now you won't think he's so handsome anymore. She hung up. Hi. I pulled up my recent calls. I didn't recognize the number. I hit the new number and my phone dialed. It was time to put an end to this. The number you have reached is no longer in service. It was a recorded message. I hung up. That was a neat trick. I wished I knew how to prank call people from a number that didn't work. My phone rang again. It was another unknown caller. I slid my finger across the screen. Hello. How did crazy lady get my number? Whore. Look what you made me do. She hung up. I called her back, and that number was disconnected. I googled spoofing with a disconnected number. Sure enough, there were over 5 million hits. I'd been phone spoofed before, only they'd used a voice spoofer that had made the caller sound like Mike Tyson. It was creepy and had ended in a shootout that had blown up the VFW hall. My phone rang again. Again, it was unknown. I let it go to voicemail. My phone buzzed with a text. Call me now. It was from Monica. I hit her name in my recent contacts list. She picked up on the first ring. You won't believe what I found out. About come on in. Does that mean I didn't need to call Lyle? Because I already did. I rolled my eyes. If only Monica had texted sooner. No, we still need Lyle to check it out for us, but Monica was giving this plenty of build-up. Come on in is in the adult hospitality business. Okay. What does that mean? Adult hospitality sounded like they were a business devoted to being nice to adults. I had no idea what their business model was, but I was all for being nice to adults. It's a brothel, Monica whispered. Right in our hometown. She sounded so excited. Excuse me? Did you say, brothel? I whispered back, but with a whole lot less excitement. Yep, we have a whorehouse in Lakeside. Monica sounded like she was having way too much fun. In my mind, something clicked. A few months ago, I'd found some audiocassette tapes in the desk drawer of a man responsible for Haley's kidnapping. After I'd finally listened to the tapes, I'd found out that he was also involved in human trafficking. Remember those cassette tapes we found in Big Tommy's desk? There was something on one of them about a new shipment for the house. I wonder if he was referring to the brothel. Think it's the same one. Do you really think we have 2 brothels in Lakeside? Monica had a PhD in sarcasm. Okay, after I heard it come out of my mouth, I knew it was stupid. I am not responsible for the words that spill out of my mouth. I should really issue a public disclaimer. So why would Jane have her mail sent to a brothel? Wait. Again, after I said the words I realized how stupid they sound. I only met her a couple of times, but from what I remember, I don't think she was a working girl, if you know what I mean. Monica shuffled some papers. Jane was kind of plain, but maybe that was her appeal. I couldn't see her as a prostitute either. She was meek and shy and, well, dull. Maybe she did the books or made the appointments. Don't do appointments. I really needed to research whorehouses, probably not on my work computer. I'm sure there are lots of non-whoring jobs at the whorehouse. Monica typed something on her end. We really need to find a way to get into that house. I know, but I can't think of one. Maybe one of us can interview for a job there. I was grasping at straws. I don't think they're on Indeed or CareerBuilder or Glassdoor. I could hear Monica's eye roll. Come to think of it, where do they find new talent? For that matter, do they advertise their services? Maybe we could pose as lesbians looking for a good time. I wasn't sure what we would learn about Jane in a brothel, but she did appear to have lived there, so we needed to at least check out her room. Maybe Craigslist? I'll ask Randy in claims investigations. He's kind of an ass, but I guarantee that he knows about any and all brothels in the area. Monica took a deep breath. Trust me when I tell you that calling Lyle was 1,000 times better than meeting Randy face to face. He's slimy. She gagged. If I don't call you back in 15 minutes, call my HR department or the FBI because I'm being held in Randy's office against my will. Got it. She hung up. I glanced at the clock on my computer. Monica called back 12 minutes later. I hope you're happy. In order to get the info we needed, I promised to have a drink with him next week. I might be out sick that day. Yep, I'm definitely coming down with something. Did he tell you how to get into the whorehouse? Words that I never would have thought would come from my mouth. Yes, he gave me a number. We're supposed to text God. I hope this isn't her real name, Davina Hasselhoff. She vets new clients. Apparently. They have to make sure you aren't law enforcement. And yes, they do girl-girl parties. Parties, that's what he calls sex with a prostitute. Monica was so casual. Think we should tell Damon or Ben about the brothel? My gut feeling was yes, but my gut made terrible decisions. Absolutely, after we go. I don't know about you, but I can't wait to see an actual brothel. We can't tell Haley or she won't let us go and she'll turn the brothel in. I love her, but she's too much of a rule follower. Monica drummed her fingers on her desk. What do you think? I can't wait to meet the woman who chose the name Davina Hasselhoff. If I were choosing a hooker name it would be something like Bunny Titsalot or Chastity LaRue or Madam Spank Me. Or, oh, Betty Ray. Bombshell. Davina Hasselhoff, that's just stupid. I checked the clock on my computer. Wanna go this afternoon? That's what I was thinking. Randy says there's a free early bird buff. If you get there before 3:30. Don't expect much. Monica knew I loved free food. Cool. I was totally bringing a large zip-top bag so I could bring some food home. I didn't get paid for another 3 days, and free food was a whole lot better than the year-old frozen fish sticks from my freezer. Meet you at the Walgreens on Lakeside Crossing at 2:30. I'll have my mom pick up the kids and take them to the park. Monica hung up. In a little over 3 hours, it was brothel time. Oddly, I couldn't wait. 9. 3 hours and 15 minutes later, we pulled through the large wrought iron gate. We were in Monica's Civic because we were afraid they would recognize my car. I didn't expect this. Me neither. Monica pulled down a meandering driveway through overly manicured grounds. Once we passed the overgrown front gate, we encountered dozens of nude garden gnomes, several gazebos, vine-covered trellises, and lots of marble statues of naked people. 1 or 2 would be sort of tasteful. But I counted 22. Clearly the groundskeeper went for quantity. Something else caught my attention. Is that a penis fountain? Monica glanced over to where I was pointing. Yes. These grounds remind me of Disney World, but like the cheesy porn version. We turned the corner and the world's ugliest Gothic mansion loomed before us. Like the grounds, whoever had built it had gone for quantity. I counted 11 spires, 3 cupolas, and 13 keyhole windows spanning the top floor. The entire building was made out of pale pink granite with black painted windowsills and shutters. Wow. Monica's mouth dropped open. I thought the grounds were bad, but this, she gestured toward the house, is a new level. It's a cross between the Cinderella castle and a creepy haunted house. I nodded. It's hauntingly cheerful. There was something of Cinderella's castle mixed into the foreboding Gothic monstrosity. Monica pulled into the visitor parking. I noticed several handicapped parking places. Did they actually care about city ordinances? And if so, who in the city made sure they were up to code? One side of the black double front doors opened and a huge woman tottered out on unbelievably high red heels. She had to be at least 7 feet tall. Wearing black pinstripe slacks, a post-it note yellow blouse, and a red sweater, she was both hard to look at and hard to miss. In her ultra-tall, red patent leather heels, she picked her way across the small gravel parking lot. For someone who supposedly lived in a whorehouse and might even be a whore, she was surprisingly bad at walking in hooker heels. I am Davina. She had a very deep voice, and I studied her throat and Adam's apple. She was a cross-dresser, and by the look of her outfit, a fairly new one. It was like she hadn't quite figured out the whole dressing like a female thing. Everyone needed a good girlfriend who wouldn't let you wear yellow with Do you come with me? Based on the name she'd chosen, I was betting her fake accent was supposed to be German, but she sounded more like Jackie Chan trying to speak Russian. Monica and I followed. You are the girls who like girls, yes? Davina glanced over her linebacker shoulder at us. Yes. I smiled and nodded. We like girls. That is good. We go first to office to talk about what you want. She pointed to a 10-foot-tall door with office painted on it in black curlicue script. She led us inside and motioned to 2 leopard-covered slipper chairs in the shape of actual slippers. She kicked off her shoes and sat behind a massive black lacquered desk. I couldn't help but notice the shoes were size 14. So, what you want? Davina hit a few keys on a MacBook. You each want separate room or you want to party together? She sounded bored. Sooner or later, I guess every job becomes monotonous. Actually, we'd love to see Jane Doe's room. Monica jumped right on in there. I do not know a Jane Doe. Davina was all business. She pointed to a large flat screen hanging on the wall to the left of us. Here are girls we have right now. I glanced at the TV. There were 6 different live camera feeds of Bedrooms, all with mostly naked women sitting or lying on the beds. No doubt there was a voyeur room where someone could pay to watch what went on in these rooms. Davina pointed to the TV. We have different themes. Dungeon, kitchen, doctor's exam room, library, office, and stage with pole. The stage room costs extra because cleaning the pole takes more time. We also have a hot tub out back, but someone is using it right now. I would think the hot tub would be extra, because it would take even longer to clean. Unless I took a deep, calming breath they didn't clean it. It was best not to think about it. See anything you like? Davina nodded toward the TV. I was so glad I couldn't see the hot tub. I hadn't eaten lunch, but if I had, it would be coming back up. All of the women looked bored out of their minds. Sometimes Monica's brain-to-mouth filter didn't work. She was so lucky to have one. I'm not burdened with a brain-to-mouth filter. Davina shrugged. Not a lot to do around here when there are no clients. I decided to follow Monica's lead and just go for it. And honestly, the place was skeeving me out. The sooner we got out of here, the better. We're looking into Jane's murder and we need to see her room. I wondered what Jane's room theme had been. I couldn't believe she'd lived like this. I couldn't believe she'd been a substitute teacher. Going forward, I would make sure we vetted them more closely. I told you, I don't know a Jane. I think it's time for you to go. Davina stood and pointed to the door. She hit a red button on top of her desk and a large man with shoulders even broader than Davina's burst into the room. Marco, escort them out. She pointed to us. Marco glared as he umbered toward us. We can show ourselves out. Monica rolled her neck and popped her knuckles like she was expecting a fight. I was totally hiding behind her. She was tough and I was only tough. Talking two different things. I knew my limitations. I couldn't take Marco or Davina even if they had both hands tied behind their backs, or possibly even if they were unconscious. Marco went to grab Monica's elbow, but she stepped to the left. We're going. I put my hands up. We don't want any trouble. Marco walked us down a dark hallway, not the way we'd come in. My stomach dropped. He was going to kill us and dump our bodies in the fake lake out front with the swan paddle boats and the penis fountain. I would never see my son again and my body would never be found. This had been a terrible idea. Marco marched us down another hallway, and I could see light at the end. It was a glass door. On the wall to the right of the door was a giant corkboard with Top Booker of the Month written in black curlicue font. The picture of the top booker for last month was Jane Doe. While Marco unlocked the door, I ripped the picture down and stuffed it into my bra. It looked like Jane had indeed been a prostitute, and a damn good one. I was willing to bet it had gotten her killed. 10. Can't believe you went to a brothel and didn't tell me. Haley whispered in full-on pissed-off mom mode. You could have been killed or worse. What was worse than death? We didn't tell you because we knew you wouldn't let us go and you'd insist we call the police. Monica sipped a Diet Coke as we all sat on a bench next to the playground at Lakeside Park. I glanced at the kids, who were playing on the swings, as I pulled the photo I'd stolen out of my bra. This proves that Jane worked there. I handed the picture to Haley. It looks like her hook for hooking was being a naughty nurse. Monica pointed to the photograph. She was top booker last month. At least we know she was a hard worker. Haley always found the silver lining. We didn't get to see her room or talk to any of her co-workers. Monica hunched her shoulders. Except for Davina, who I guess is the madam, but she wasn't any help. Jane lived there. You'd think she'd have some friends or co-workers who'd want to help us find the person who killed her. Unless her friends and co-workers killed her. I have an idea of how to get someone in there to talk to us. I knew Haley wasn't going to like what I was about to propose. I turned to her. We can't go to the police just yet. After we do, they'll raid the brothel and we won't get a chance to talk to anyone there. We need to stake out the entrance, make a list of who comes and goes to find out who works there. We follow the workers and ask them about Jane. It was all I could think of to do. What if they decide to kill us instead of help us? Monica had a point. Well, I didn't think of that. Usually I have better ideas. It must have been because I'd been awakened early that morning by crazy naked ladies drumming. Now I couldn't get that image out of my head. Haley looked thoughtful. Mustang has something there. Instead of staking the entrance out, we could get a camera, mount it outside the gate, and film the license plate numbers of the cars that drive in. There are Cameras used for deer hunting that can handle the weather and only turn on when there's motion. It puts us all in danger. Monica crossed her legs and stared at the playground. Yes, but I think we're already in danger. At least, y'all are, because you went to the brothel. They know your faces and Monica's license plate. Haley smoothed out non-existent wrinkles on her navy skirt. Her voice was very quiet and very level. If Jane was killed because she worked at the brothel, we should assume that they will come for us. At least with the camera footage, we have some leverage. Yes, but, Monica sounded like she was mentally reviewing Haley's plan and coming to the same conclusion I had. We didn't have a choice. That's really devious. It might work. I'm proud of you. Haley stuck out her tongue. Wow. Monica patted her leg. You're a spitfire today. Haley ignored her. I think my daddy has one of the outdoor cameras he uses for hunting. I'll drop by my parents' house and borrow it. She folded her hands in her lap. We need to talk about Penis Place. My neighbor will be back soon and I'm pretty sure she's going to notice a severed penis in her freezer. How long do we have? I didn't want the penis and I was sure Monica didn't want to store it at her house. We needed to find out who'd sent it to me, and fast. Mrs. Comstock will be back in a week and a half. The penis needs to be gone by then. Haley made it sound like a perfectly normal thing to have a severed penis stored in her neighbor's freezer. She'd come a long way. On our first murder investigation, she'd been much more reserved. I guessed we all had, but this was our third rodeo, and unfortunately we were becoming murder and severed body part experts. I hadn't put it together until now. The phone calls I'd been getting, were they related to the penis? For that matter, had the penis come from the brothel? They certainly would have had lots of penises to choose from. I might have some new severed penis evidence. I held up a hand. That came out wrong. I've been getting prank phone calls. They started this morning. I pulled my phone out of my front left trouser pocket and played the voicemail. You slut. I know what you've been doing and it's over. I put an end to it. Try screwing around now. Who is that? Monica's brows squished together. And more importantly, who are you screwing? I need details. I'm not sleeping with anyone. The closest I've gotten to screwing is with my toilet paper roll holder. I reviewed that last sentence in my head. I meant I had to screw it back in the wall after it fell off. I was really off my game today. That makes so much more sense. Monica grabbed my phone. Did you dial the number back? Yes. Every time she calls it's from a different disconnected number. I checked online and there are lots of spoofing sites that let you call people from a disconnected number. I was at a loss. Maybe Monica and Haley could help. Monica pulled up my recent calls. There might be a way to trace these numbers. She pulled out her phone and took a picture of my recent calls. I'll check at the office tomorrow. My gut feel is that there isn't, but it's worth a try. She handed me my phone back. How's it working out living with Astrid? Haley was always the caregiver. I yawned. Starting at 5:30, Astrid and her friends beat drums and dance around naked in the front hallway. They call it greeting the sun. I couldn't get that picture out of my head. I swallowed down the vomit that was creeping up my esophagus. I can't believe I'm going to say this, but I miss the old seance days. This time of year, the sun doesn't rise until 7:30. Monica sipped her Diet Coke. Apparently, greeting it is a lengthy and disturbing process. I watched Max swinging from the monkey bars. What Native American tribe is she from? Haley sounded interested. But I couldn't tell if it was fake interest or the real thing. She was a well-bred Southern lady, so it could go either way. I don't think DNA tests are that spicy. FIC. I don't know for sure, but I doubt that different Native American tribes have different DNA markers. Monica shrugged one shoulder. Maybe they do. If she really was Native American, she'd be from the crazy-assed white rich lady tribe. I couldn't get the sun greeting out of my head. I don't understand. What do you mean if she really was Native American? Haley watched her daughters, Reese and Riley, on the swings. It's all Dulce's fault. Astrid doesn't have any Native American blood in her, that we know of. Dulce switched the DNA sample before she mailed it in. Why? Monica sipped the last of her Diet Coke and set the can on the bench beside her. Dulce thought it would be funny if she switched the DNA samples. So she had Curtis, our mail carrier, swab the inside of his cheek and she sent that sample instead. Boy did that prank ever backfire, on all of us. I would have given anything to get that image out of my head. You can always come live with me. Haley put her arm around me. We'd all love it. It's tempting, but I'm going to stay with Astrid. I feel safe there. She has an elaborate security system and she's nuts. Anyone who wants to break in and do me harm is going to have second thoughts, because I'm pretty sure Astrid can call forth Satan to strike them down. I watched Max move on to the jungle gym. And all of the windows in her house are bulletproof. Why does she have bulletproof windows? Monica tossed her kin into the recycling bin. Why does she beat on drums while naked? I shrugged. You keep trying to classify her as normal. That's your mistake. I heard she had an affair with Manuel Noriega in the 80s and he insisted she have the bulletproof windows. Haley leaned back against the bench. According to Bessie Greenbaum from my garden club, it was a very hot romance until Noriega's regime was overthrown when the U.S. invaded Panama in 1989. After he was tried in Miami and sentenced to jail, they lost touch. She sounded all starry-eyed, like she was telling us of some tragic Romeo and Juliet love story. Slowly, Monica turned to stare at her. Manuel Noriega was a military dictator with a list of horrible atrocities a mile long. Don't act like they were star-crossed lovers. After he served 17 years in prison here, we extradited him to France to serve 7 years there, and then the French extradited him to Panama for even more prison time. He died in prison. He was not a nice man. Monica shook her head. Somehow, I don't see Astrid as having put up with him. They looked at me like I might have insight into the issue. No idea. Note to self, Google Manuel Noriega. The name sounded familiar, but since I got my news and current events from People magazine, there were some definite gaps in my world history knowledge. Now, if you need to know what the A-list movie stars wore to the Oscars or what's going on with the Real Housewives of New Jersey, I'm your girl. Besides a security system and bulletproof windows, what other security does she have? Haley's face wrinkled in concern. I'm not sure, but knowing Astrid, there's probably some magic spells, hexes, and a shaman or two on hand in case she needs to send anyone directly to hell. Well, we can't really depend on Astrid to protect us. Monica kept her eyes on her son, Landon. So what's our next move? Haley pulled out her phone and thumb-typed something into it. I just texted my dad. I'll pick up the camera from my parents and we can install it tonight. Oh no. Tonight is the drum circle and y'all have to be there. Dulce's going to take the kids and spoil them rotten. The drum circle had better involve clothing, because I didn't want to be up close and personal with a naked Astrid. Haley raised her hand. I'm not dancing around naked. Monica raised her hand. Me neither. I'm just praying that everyone is clothed. I didn't know what to expect from Astrid's drum circle, but I was certain it wouldn't be good. 11. D never been to a drum circle before, and now I was sure I never wanted to again. This is just shameful. Haley folded her arms across her chest and refused to participate. I followed her eyes and tried to take it all in. We were outside, which was better than the sun greeting ceremony, and everyone was clothed, but those were the only positives that I could see. There were 10 enormous drums arranged in a tight circle. The drums looked like they'd been made from various animal hides. The same 5 women who'd scared the sun into rising this morning were now outfitted in enough buckskin to upholster half the sofas in Lakeside. But it was the staggering amount of silver and turquoise jewelry that was offensive. Well, that and the thousands of red sequins forming Native American symbols on all of the buckskin dresses, pants, vests, and moccasins. Astrid, who I assumed was the chief of these proceedings, wore twice the number of sequins and silver necklaces, but instead of a feathered headdress, she wore the head of a snarling bear. I studied it. It might have been a bear rug that she'd repurposed as a hat. But I couldn't be sure. Central Texas wasn't known for its black bear population, so I was 100% sure she hadn't killed the bear. Okay. More like 80%. She was totally up to the task of bear wrangling. I'm convinced that in the zombie apocalypse Astrid would be the last one eaten, because her brain is so screwed up that Ev and zombies wouldn't touch it. I have a sneaking suspicion that I might be one of the first ones eaten. Not because my brain tastes better than everyone else's, but because my superpower is talking people to death. Sadly, that's not a skill that seems useful on zombies. A whole lot of sequin-studded animals died for this, Monica said. Is this a ceremony? What's the official name for 5 crazy old ladies, decked out like Vegas showgirls, turned Native Americans, beating on very big drums? A travesty. Haley shook her head in disapproval. Isn't it enough that we took their land and tried to kill them off? I think Native Americans have suffered enough. She pointed to the drums. This is too much. I can't decide. Is there some pattern to their drumming? Monica studied the women as each one beat on one drum and then another. I think they may be running. It was hard to tell. You didn't often see a group of 80-something women running, especially if they weren't being chased. Oops. It looks like Donnelly wandered away. Monica pointed off into a patch of live oaks, where Donnelly was beating on the side of a tree. Donnelly Murphy was blind and not overly bright, but she was good natured, or at least she was now. She no longer drove, as Monica had confiscated her car keys and thrown them into Lake Travis. Not having the responsibility of driving had turned Donnelly from irritable and clueless to sweet and clueless. And she no longer mowed down peace signs, so Lakeside was a safer place. I'll get her. I walked over to Donnelly, who was industriously banging her mallet on a tree. I put my arm around her. Miss Donnelly, it's Mustang. Let me help you back into the drum circle. Thank you, dear. This drum seems to be broken. She stopped whacking at the tree. I analyzed the drum circle. The drums were so close together that I wasn't sure how she'd gotten out. I managed to shove her in between 2 drums, and she bounced off Mitzi Lang and crashed into Eloise Dunlap, all the while whacking away with her mallet. I went back to stand beside Haley and Monica. $10, says she. Cold cocks someone before this is over. That's a sucker's bet. Monica didn't even look my way. She was too busy watching the spectacle in front of her. This is better than the circus. I wish I had some popcorn. Me too. Haley watched the women beating the drums with a lot of gusto if not rhythm. It's like watching bumper cars. They're all trying to avoid Donnelly, who keeps bumping into them. You've got to give it to Astrid for keeping Donnelly in the group, since she greatly increases their risk of a traumatic brain injury. I nodded. I haven't really thought about it before, but you're right. Astrid is very loyal. I racked my brain for other good qualities, but all it came up was the image of her dancing around naked in the front hall. I needed to let that go, but I might have had PTSD. Are we supposed to participate? Monica patted her pockets. Sorry. But I can't find my gaudy Elvis-style buckskin jumpsuit. Looks like they have it covered. A fake drum circle hosted by a crazy lady wasn't a good enough reason for me to risk brain injury. I think just being here is enough. What are they hoping to achieve by beating all of those drums? Haley always tried to find the logical in the illogical. A good harvest. I watched Donnelly spin around and pelt someone on the knee. Does Astrid grow crops? Haley had this annoying habit of wanting to understand things. Nope. Stop trying to understand her. I'm pretty sure she was put on this earth to confuse people. Everyone has a gift and Astrid's is confusing people, usually me. I wish we could sit down. I've been standing all day. Haley lifted one foot and rotated it at the ankle like she was trying to stretch it out. Why did you wear heels to a drum circle? Monica pointed to Haley's heels. I came from Daniel's office. His medical assistant was out sick, so I filled in. Haley set that foot down and raised the other one. Why don't you take your shoes off? Monica was a problem solver. She couldn't help it, it was in her DNA, like trash talking and badassery. I can't. It will ruin my stockings. Haley sounded honestly scandalized. That's because you're the only person in America who still wears them. Monica nodded toward her combat-booted feet. I don't wear pantyhose for Jesus and I certainly don't wear hem to work. Monica does have a point. I smiled kindly at Haley as my voice took on the tone of a fire-and-brimstone Baptist preacher. Pantyhose are the Thorkas of the Western world. Throw down those nylon chains of oppression and let your legs free. Monica threw her hands up. Hallelujah. Haley laughed. Stop. I don't wear stockings all of the time. Only when you leave your house, but we love you anyway. I put my arm around her. Slowly, we're bringing you over to the dark side. Monica put her arm around Haley. It's fun. We have an endless supply of Cheetos and we don't care what people think. Haley patted our hands. We really need to talk about the case. I got the camera from my dad. I'm thinking of installing it tomorrow morning. I thought about doing it tonight, but I'm guessing that nighttime is there Busiest time. Wow, I hadn't thought of that. Monica nodded. Good job. That's good thinking. What time tomorrow morning? I was proud of Haley, not because I thought she wasn't smart, but because being sneaky wasn't part of her everyday life. Now, I can do sneaky all day and all night. Not too early, because if we get there before sunrise, I'm thinking the overnight, guests will just be leaving. Maybe around 9. Haley really had thought this out. That sucks. I can't go tomorrow. I have a staff meeting. Monica's top lip curled. Like most people, she viewed staff meetings as a waste of time. I'll go with you, Haley. I can be a little late for work. Spying on a whorehouse was so much more interesting than looking busy at work. I'll pick you up at 8:30. Monica nodded in the direction of the drum circle. This isn't nearly as much fun as the seances. There's no free candy and I miss the crystal skull. She shook her head. Words I never would have thought would ever come out of my mouth. I missed the seances too. They were less creepy than all of those dolls. I 12. Turned onto Watershed Road and did a double take. There were cars parked on either side of the road. It looked like the lunch rush for the McDonald's drive-thru. Were the cars lining up to get into the brothel? Looks like we're not installing the camera today. I pointed to the cars. Why are there people standing on the side of the road? Haley rolled down the window and hung her head out, trying to get a better view. Are those tables? I pulled up behind a brown Ford Taurus that had seen better days. Looks like a yard sale. That would explain the tables full of various things. Haley scrunched up her nose. I think buying used items from a brothel is a bad idea. Well, we're here. Might as well see what they have for sale. I was only buying items new in the box and that didn't require batteries. I stepped around the Taurus's hood and came face to face with Davina Hasselhoff. Today, she was wearing a floor-length red satin ball gown and a Dolly Parton wig. She stepped toward me and I couldn't help but notice the gold sequin high tops on her feet. All in all, this was a much better outfit than yesterday. So, you're back for our yard sale. She leaned down and whispered. You wanted to see Jane's things. She gestured like a game show hostess. Here they are. Well, the stuff that none of the other girls wanted. Everything's for sale, including her Toyota Camry, or it will be once the police release it. FYI, we were selling it cheap, you know, because she died in it. Haley and I looked at each other. There might be something in all of this junk that could help us find Jane's killer. Or at least, help us figure out why she was killed. What was your relationship with Jane like? Haley covertly winked at me. She would chat up Davina while I looked through these things. I scanned the tables, looking for personal items, files, a diary, a laptop, a cell phone, or a scrap of paper telling me who had murdered her. A woman in a brown coat picked up a laptop, checked it over, and put it down again. I practically threw people out of the way getting to the laptop. I snatched it up a second before the woman could pick it up again. That's mine. I'm buying that. The woman glared up at me. She had spiky gray troll doll hair and John Lennon glasses. I recognized her as the receptionist for Dick Stevenson, our local optometrist. She also happens to be his mother. As you can imagine, Dr. Dick is a dick, hence the name. You put it down. That makes it fair game. I glared right back. If memory served, she didn't see well. I searched the table for something of equal size and heft. There was a gray box about the same size as the laptop. That held a blow-up doll. Or I assumed it held a blow-up doll, because one was featured on the cover. It was a very thin box but it was heavy. An unblown-up blow-up doll must really shrink down to nothing. On second thought, I changed my mind. I leaned across the table and handed the box to Dr. Dick's mother. Here you go. She brought the box up to her face like she could sniff out the laptop. I thought she might lick it. Fine. Stay out of my way. I held the laptop to my chest and looked around for anything else that might be helpful. There were 3 tables full of porcelain figurines. I hadn't known there could be so many different versions of milkmaids and sheep. I spotted a box of books and made my way over to them. I placed the laptop in the box and hefted it up. In the movies, people sometimes leave important clues between the pages of a book. I glanced down into the box. Jane was a huge Nora Roberts fan. I hoped Nora could help us find out who'd killed Jane. A man on my left reached in front of me to pick up a keyring full of keys. He seemed to be looking for something and then shook his head and put down the keys. I picked them up and tossed them in my box, which was getting heavy. I walked back to Haley, who was still speaking with Davina. We want all of this. Can I leave it here? I set the box on the table next to the cash box. Why not? Davina waved me away like I was a stubborn mosquito. She turned back to Haley. I don't understand. Why don't stripes and plaids go together? Apparently, Haley was giving Davina some valuable clothing advice. I touched Haley's arm. Watch this stuff and don't let anyone take anything. I wasn't sure of Haley's previous yard sale experience, so I needed to make her aware of the dangers of leaving items unattended. Watch the box. Sometimes people don't respect the idea that items at the register are spoken for and they pick them up. Haley nodded but kept her attention on Davina. I walked around the tables looking for anything else that might be useful. A woman wearing a Hello Kitty sweatshirt picked up a Hello Kitty toaster and I caught the faintest gleam of gray metal behind it. I made my way over to the table and picked up a small metal lockbox. I tried to open it. But it was, you guessed it, locked. I cradled it in the crook of my arm and picked up an electric pedicure groomer used to scrape dead skin off of dry and cracking feet. It didn't look like the box had ever been opened. Yep. That was coming home with me. Not that I had dry, cracking feet, but I believe prevention is the best medicine where dry, cracking feet are concerned. Across the table was a cardboard box of the type commonly used to store photographs. I reached over and picked it up. I lifted the top and there were lots of pictures inside. I stuffed that under my arm and headed back to Haley. I stowed my finds in the book box and went in search of more potential clue holders. No, that's already spoken for, you can't have it, Haley screamed at the top of her lungs. It hasn't been paid for, so it's up for grabs and I want it. It was a man who strongly resembled Dwayne Johnson, only with even less of a neck. He had to have been at least 7 feet tall and almost that wide. I don't want any trouble, but this laptop is mine. It was in my box and you can't have it. Haley grabbed at it, but the man held it over her head. I don't want to hurt you, so please hand over the laptop. Haley was all calm, cool, and reasonable. She held out her hand. Make me. No neck. Dwayne was pushing his luck. I warned you. She kneed him in the balls. He dropped the laptop, which Haley caught, as he crumbled to the ground, crying like a little girl. I hadn't known she had it in her. Usually, she was the soul of restraint and decorum, but she took responsibility very seriously, and she was responsible for finding out who had killed Jane. Sorry, I had no choice. Haley placed the laptop back in the box. She turned back to Davina. Davina was still drop-jawed. That was truly badass. Haley smiled. Thanks. That was our brother you just need. We can't let that slide. You being a lady doesn't change things. Shoulder to shoulder, 3 steroid pumped. No-necked men faced W.N. Haley. I was like 70% sure they were men, but the one in the middle might have been a woman, it was hard to say. Davina picked up the box with the laptop, stowed it under the table, and went to stand beside Haley. I couldn't think of anything else to do, so I stood on Haley's other side. I loved my best friend dearly, but this was out of character for her. I'd always thought that if I ever had to back up a friend in a fight, it would be Monica. Based on what I'd learned at the 2 kickboxing classes Haley had dragged me to, I fisted my hands and put them up, defending my face. I tried to look tough, but I was pretty sure that the steroid triplets weren't buying it. Davina took a similar fighting stance. Are you going to glare at us or are we going to get down to business? The brother/possible sister in the middle threw a punch that went wide. Haley ducked and it grazed Davina's left ear. Now it's on. Davina straightened her Dolly Parton wig. No one messes with Dolly. She let out a war cry and launched herself at the man/woman in the middle. Her foot got caught on her dress and she fell backward, knocking into a woman holding an armload of porcelain milkmaid figurines. The woman stumbled back and tripped over a red beanbag chair. Milkmaids went flying and crashed into pieces. Tiny white beanbag beans flew everywhere. Look what you just did, the woman yelled. Those are collector's items. One of those was the milkmaid's dance. It's super rare. She picked up the closest headless milkmaid and hurled it at Davina. Davina kicked out like she was trying to punt the figurine, but she lost her balance and landed on top of the woman. Ball gowns weren't made for punting. I felt like now was a bad time to point that out. What in blazes is going on here? Dr. Dick's mother spit out beanbag beads as she wiped her face with the blow-up doll box. She held the box up. Hi. Doesn't matter what you do to me, this laptop is mine. No one had the heart to tell her it was a blow-up doll. The no-necked man in front of me kicked out and swept my right leg. I landed hard on my butt. Hey now. I could have had my cell phone in my back pocket. I didn't. But what if I had? It would have been bad. I tried to do one of those superhero jump-up moves where they land solidly on their feet, but I wasn't a superhero and it ended up being an awkward roll onto my knees. Once I was standing, I doubled down on my glare. The man grinned maniacally as he stepped to the side and threw a punch in Haley's direction. Haley dodged it and his fist bounced off my left temple. Pain exploded in my head. I dropped to my knees. Through the pain I was dimly aware of the fight's conclusion. Haley punched the man directly in the neck. She stepped back, dodging a blow from the brother/sister in the middle and kicked him/her in the shin. He/she went down on all fours. Haley stomped on the foot of the remaining brother. And kneed him in the balls. Davina clapped. That was amazing. Thank you. I've been taking kickboxing and Krav Maga. Haley brushed some invisible dust off of her designer dress as she leaned down to check on me. Are you okay, Mustang? I think so. That was impressive. You were part ninja, part debutante. I wish I'd filmed it. Monica's going to be so proud of you. I slowly stood. My head felt like it was about to explode. I put an arm around Haley. She was shaking. After her kidnapping a few months ago, she'd been determined not to be a victim. Today, she definitely hadn't been a victim. They threatened us. I had to take them down. I warned them. Haley took several deep breaths and she stopped shaking. One of the steroid brothers lunged at Haley. Davina's fist shot out and punched him directly in the right ear. I haven't had this much fun in a very long time. Davina sounded so cheerful. When I woke up this morning I thought it was going to be just another day, you know, same day, different name. She beamed. So much fun. I needed some Tylenol and fast. It felt like my brain was punching the inside of my skull, trying to get out. Haley hefted up the box from under the table. How much do we owe you? Davina waved her off. Nothing, and because I like you guys so much, I'll discreetly pass your names on to Jane's closest friends. She looked around like she wanted to make sure no one was listening. She whispered. We have to keep this on the WN low. If Natasha finds out, we're all going to be in trouble. I noticed that Davina's accent was gone, thank God. Who's Natasha? I was whispering because Davina was whispering. Davina leaned into us. She's the madam. She runs the place and she's not a very nice person. She looked around again. Give me your phone numbers and I'll have Jane's friends meet you outside the house. Inside. Everything we do is recorded. There are cameras out here too, but no microphones. Then why are we whispering? Haley whispered. No idea, Davina whispered. Thanks for your help, I whispered. I tried to nod toward the car, but my head wouldn't cooperate. We need to go. Don't forget, lunch tomorrow at Shazy. I'm buying. See you at 11. Davina waved. For a second I thought my head injury must be worse than I thought. Then I realized Davina had been talking to Haley. You have a lunch date with Davina? I tried not to sound so surprised. I'm taking her shopping. She really needs a style coach and I can't let her walk around like that. We should all go. I'm sure Davina would love 3 style coaches instead of just one. She's new to the whole female fashion thing. Haley stowed the box on my back seat. Plus, she's bound to have some information on Jane. Sounds like a plan. I'll text Monica. Tomorrow was Saturday, so we needed a place for the kids to go. Haley read my mind. I'll have Anis take the kids to a movie and then to the park. Haley always saves the day. Maybe if I took badass lessons every day, in about 100 years I'd be just like her. 13. And me to drive. Haley studied my face. You don't look well. Yes. I handed over the key fob. My head feels like my brain is trying to claw its way out. You might have a concussion. Haley helped me into the passenger's seat and then slid behind the wheel. I'm taking you to the ER. I knew she was right, but how was I supposed to explain a possible concussion that I had gotten on the way into work? I supposed I could tell them the truth that I was the casualty of a yard sale brawl. My cell phone rang through the car speakers. It was Damon. What are the chances that he's just calling me now by coincidence? I hadn't seen anyone following me, but Damon always seemed to know when I was in trouble. About 0. You should answer it anyway. Haley smiled at me. He's very worried about you. I looked her up and down. Not even a hair was out of place. How do you do that? You've just been in a fight and your makeup is flawless and your dress isn't even wrinkled. My blouse was half untucked and I'd ripped both knees of my trousers. My phone continued to ring. I hit answer because I knew Damon would just keep calling. You got into a fight? Are you okay? Damon sounded concerned and more than a little put out. Ay Dios mío, how do you keep getting yourself into these things? I wasn't sure which question to answer first. I'm okay. She took a nasty punch to the head. I'm taking her to the ER. Haley had turned traitor. She was part debutante, part ninja, and part traitor. If I didn't love her to death, I'd kill her. Does she have a concussion? He sounded out of breath. I'm running to my car. I'll meet you at the ER. He hung up before I could protest. Probably because he knew I would protest. My phone rang again. This time it was Ben. Your other concerned suitor. Haley put a little extra southern bell in her voice. I hit answer, because like Damon, he'd just keep on calling. Did you just get in a fist fight at a yard sale? Ben sounded like he couldn't believe it. It wasn't a fight so much as Haley kicked everyone's butt. Unfortunately, I caught a punch to the head. Davina looks worse than I do. I was pretty sure that made sense, but my head was throbbing. Who's Davina? Ben was yelling now. Wait, I don't give a crap about Davina. You got hit in the head? Do you have a concussion? I think she might. I'm taking her to the ER. Haley just kept on turning me in. Tattletale. I'll meet you there. Ben hung up. Men seemed to be hanging up on me a lot today. What is a concussion? I knew it was a head injury, but I didn't know why people thought it was serious. In cartoons, when one of the characters got hit in the head, they saw stars. I looked around. No stars were swirling around my head. It's a form of traumatic brain injury. Your brain is soft tissue and is surrounded by cerebral spinal fluid which is protected by your skull. When you take a nasty blow to the head, it can cause the brain to move inside your skull. Haley knew everything. So my brain just floated around. That didn't seem like a good idea. I'm guessing that's bad and probably accounts for the fact that it feels like my brain is jackhammering a hole in my skull. I was starting to feel nauseated, so I reclined my seat and closed my eyes. Haley socked me hard in the shoulder. You need to keep your eyes open and sit upright. She reached over and pressed the lever to bring my seat back up. It's a myth that you shouldn't sleep after a concussion, but in your case, I think it's best to keep you awake. I can't tell if your eyes are dilated, and since I helped you to the car, I don't know if you're able to walk on your own. If your pupils aren't dilated and you can walk on your own, you can sleep, but not until we verify it. I tried to put my head between my legs, but my seatbelt restricted movement in my head sent out a violent protest. I'm nauseated. I feel like I need to close my eyes so that I'm not sick. Take short, panting breaths and concentrate on not vomiting. Haley turned onto Lakeside Boulevard. We're only 10 minutes away. That was not helpful. It was the longest 10 minutes of my life, but we finally pulled up to the ER and Haley dropped me off and went to park. Two men came at me, one from the left and the other from the right. Ben and Damon were both here. The way they were rushing me, I felt like they were in a competition to see who could tackle me first. If I stepped back, would they run into each other? It was almost worth trying, but sudden movements made the nausea worse. Mia Moore, how does this always happen to you? Damon tried to sweep me up into his arms just as Ben also tried to sweep me up into his arms. How did you get into a fight at a yard sale? Ben checked his watch. It's like 9:30 in the morning. Did yard sale brawls have an official start time? My stomach was churning and I could feel myself weaving while both Damon and Ben hurled questions at me like pitches at a baseball game. I tried to stagger to the electric ER doors, but my head didn't like any movement. My stomach lurched and the 2 Chick-fil-A biscuits I'd had for breakfast came back up and spilled all over Ben and Damon. I wasn't sure how I'd managed to get both of them, but there they stood, covered in vomit and staring wide-eyed at me. I got her. Both of you need to go change. Haley bundled me into a wheelchair and ushed me through the hospital doors. I should have felt bad about ruining both men's shoes, and probably their pants too, but the boxing match going on in my head took precedence. Haley rolled me past admitting, pushed the button to open the ER doors, and rolled me directly to the nurse's station. She called over her shoulder, "She has a concussion. I'm putting her in room 2. Dr. Gupta's mouth fell open. I doubted that anyone had ever been rolled back without being triaged at the front desk. This is highly irregular. Mustang must be evaluated by triage. Dr. Gupta's Indian accent usually made me smile. Today I just wanted my head to stop hurting. She has a concussion. Haley checked her watch. It happened almost 30 minutes ago. Are you a doctor? Dr. Gupta gave her some attitude. No, Dr. Gupta, but I'm married to one, and I'm on the board of trustees for this hospital. She has a concussion and needs treatment immediately. Haley folded her arms and stood her ground. I'd never seen her like this. She was never pushy in the fist fight. And I'd say something major was wrong in her life. After the nausea passed, I was going to question her about it. Or maybe I should congratulate her on finally letting her inner badass out. She was like Wonder Woman minus the wedge boots. Speaking of wedge boots, would a warrior race of women really design their body armor with wedge boots? It seems to me that flats would be a better choice. Put her in room M2. Dr. Gupta pointed to the room we were already in. Help her onto the bed. I leaned on Haley as I climbed onto the hospital bed. She stood beside the bed like a guard dog waiting to attack in case someone told me I didn't have a concussion. D.D. Stanford, the nurse on duty, walked in and slid on some exam gloves. She was married to our idiot police chief, Dennis Stanford, who routinely lost his service weapon and was dumb enough to put ads on Craigslist stating that he'd lost his gun and if found please return it to Chief Stanford of the Lakeside PD. Who was worse, the idiot or the idiot who'd married the idiot? Get her vitals and then start in 4 with saline and Zofran. Dr. Gupta took a penlight out of his pocket and shined it into my eyes. Your pupils are dilating properly. How's the pain? On a scale of 1 to 10, with 10 being the most pain you've ever had, what's your pain level now? 45. This was worse than anything I'd ever experienced, including childbirth and getting shot in the shoulder. Those are 2 separate things. I didn't get shot in the shoulder while I was in labor. He typed on an e-tablet. I just ordered you something for the pain. Once we address your pain and your nausea is under control, I'm going to send you for an MRI. I closed my eyes for what seemed like a moment, and when I opened them, Nurse DD was injecting something into my fore. My whole body turned warm. Damon strolled in wearing hospital scrubs and a white lab coat. How is she? Who are you? Dr. Gupta looked him up and down. You're not a doctor. Where did you get those scrubs and that coat? It doesn't matter who I am. How is she? Damon's tone was quiet and almost menacing. Unless Mustang signs a HIPAA release, I'm not able to discuss her condition with you. Dr. Gupta liked rules and order. A couple of months ago, I'd come down to the ER to beg for some pens. I'd told him I needed 5, and he'd stood over me while I counted out 5 ballpoint pens, which was inconvenient because I'd also needed a toner cartridge and some paper clips. I'd had to come back after he was gone, which was after hours, so I'd had to work late. Wow, this pain medicine really worked, and so fast. My head didn't hurt anymore. In fact, I wasn't sure it was still attached to my body. I looked around for it in case it was floating above me, but all I saw was a crudely drawn Daffy Duck painting on one of the ceiling tiles. I looked around. Bugs Bunny seemed to be running laps on the walls of the room. I grabbed Haley's hand and pulled her closer to me. Do you see Daffy Duck on the ceiling and Bugs Bunny running around the room? She patted my hand. Yes, I believe we're in the pediatric room. Thanks, just checking. I couldn't remember ever having hallucinations before, but there was a first time for everything. You're such a good friend. I want you to know how much I love you. She really is such a nice perso. And she brings me ice cream when I'm sad. That's true friendship for you. Haley smiled down at me and patted my hand. What did you give her? Damon glared at Dr. Gupta. None of your business. You need to leave. Dr. Gupta pulled himself up to his impressive height of 5'3" and attempted to look down his nose at Damon. It was interesting, because Damon towered over him by at least a foot. Can I see you in the hall for a moment? Damon clamped a hand on Dr. Gupta's arm and practically pulled him into the hallway. I wonder if Dr. Gupta has a first name. Surely, his first name isn't Doctor. It was a puzzle and I needed to get to the bottom of it. I'm sure he has a first name. Haley pulled the room's only chair out of the corner and close to the bed. I texted Monica and she's trying to get out of a couple of meetings. She's worried about you. Monica's so nice. I love her. I had really good friends. I didn't tell them how much I loved them nearly enough. Have I told you lately how much I love you? Haley leaned close to my ear. About 2 seconds ago. How did you get into a fist fight at a yard sale? Ben walked in wearing his uniform shirt and a pair of sweatpants with "It's a girl" written down the sides of the legs. Dwayne Johnson started it. He tried to take my laptop. I yawned. Whatever medicine Nurse Dee Dee had given me was making me tired. To be honest, I stole it from Dr. Dick's mother, but I really wanted it. Ben glanced at Haley for translation. She's medicated, heavily. Everything happened so fast. We stopped at a yard sale on the way to Mustang's work. I was supposed to volunteer at the hospital today and she was giving me a ride because my car's in the shop. Anyway, a fight broke out and Mustang took a punch to the temple. Haley grinned at me. Right. There was silence for a couple of beats before I realized that she was waiting for me to confirm her story. Yes, and I got an unopened foot pedicure thingy to slough off dry skin. I looked around for the box of yard sale items so I could show him. But it wasn't here. Maybe it was still in the car. Good to know. He stepped to the side of the bed and laced his fingers through mine. I'm worried about you. Dr. Gupta walked in and stopped short. Who are you? I'm Ben Jameson with the Lakeside PD. He pointed to the gold badge pinned to his uniform shirt. Dr. Gupta rolled his eyes. I know, she's a material witness in a murder case. He pushed past Ben and stood by my bed. You two, he pointed to Ben and then to Damon, who was standing in the doorway, are going to have to wait here. She's going to radiology for an MRI. There were so many words coming out of people's mouths that I was having a hard time keeping up. Wait, I witnessed someone get murdered. I didn't remember watching someone being murdered. Are you talking about Jane? Because she was dead when I got there. I shook my head. I don't remember watching. Gee, someone get murdered. I feel like I would remember that. I searched my brain and nope, I'd never watched someone get murdered. I had watched 2 men die, both shot in self-defense. Now that I think about it, I did watch 2 men get shot and die, but both times it was self-defense. Is it considered murder if it's self-defense? For that matter, what's the difference between murder and homicide? Intent, Ben and Damon said in unison. Dr. Gupta sighed like he couldn't believe that out of all the ERS in the world, he'd had the unfortunate luck that I'd walked into his. I work here. Of course I would come here for treatment. It was free. Hello. Dr. Gupta clicked something on the bottom of the bed and I started to roll. I'm taking her to radiology. Everyone else is staying here. Dr. Gupta, do you have a first name? I was getting to the bottom of this mystery ASAP. It's Vijay. He wheeled me through the doorway. I turned around and smiled at Haley. See, I told you he had a first name. Mystery solved. Next I was going to find out who had killed Jane. 14. Oh, I have a concussion, it's not a big one. I wanted to go home, but no one would let me. Was there such a thing as medical kidnapping, because I was pretty sure I was being medically kidnapped? I want to go home. It had been hours since Haley had brought me to the ER. I was now in a hospital room. I thought about Astrid and her scaring the sun up ceremony. It certainly wouldn't help my hiata. Che. Maybe I should stay here overnight. But what about Max? My poor son had been through enough. First, he had a shit for a dad. Then his dad ran off, and now I had a concussion. It would be a miracle if he turned out even slightly normal. Don't worry. I'll take him home with me. Damon squeezed my right hand. No, I'm taking him home with me. Ben squeezed my left hand. I felt like the wishbone of a chicken. Okay, here's what we're going to do. Monica walked into the room and smacked her leather tote bag on the rolling table next to my bed. She pointed first at Damon and then to Ben. The two of you are going to play nice. Both of you will go together to pick up Max and my son Landon. I've called the school to tell them you'll be picking the boys up. You're going to bring them to Damon's house. Ben opened his mouth to protest, but Monica silenced him with a glare. You're going to take them to Damon's house and tell them they're having an overnight swim party or something fun like that. Tell them that Mustang hit her head and that Haley and I are taking care of her tonight. Haley's nanny is picking up the girls from school and taking them to the orthodontist. She'll drop them off at Damon's house after. You two are to make sure the kids are safe and protected at all times. They are our top Priority. Bautista has organized around-the-clock protection for us while we're in the hospital. Mustang leaves tomorrow, and y'all can fight over where she's leaves tomorrow night, but for right now, we need both of you to keep our kids safe. Monica was even more devious than I'd thought. She knew both Damon and Ben were overly alpha males who took the security of their loved ones very seriously. She'd given them a task that played on their alpha maleness. I would have clapped, but they were both still holding my hands. I would appreciate you both making sure that Max doesn't worry about me. I wanted to see him, but I didn't want him to see me like this lying in a hospital bed and looking helpless. I don't trust Damon's men, and why can't we go to my house? Ben was bordering on whiny. Your house doesn't have armed guards. Monica leaned against the bed. So can we count on you? She looked at each one of them in turn like she was the school principal. And she was counseling the bully right out of them. Yes. Damon nodded and stood. Sure. Ben shrugged and stood. It struck me that in some ways they were the same person, only in different packages. I guess all alpha males share the same qualities. You should probably leave now. The student pickup line gets really long. Monica pointed to her wristwatch. Was I so needy that it took two macho men to look after me? They both strutted from the room full of purpose. Our kids were going to be the safest people on earth tonight. I waited until I knew they were gone. That was amazing. I wouldn't have believed it if I hadn't seen it. Monica stuck our head out the door. Coast is clear. You can bring it in. Haley walked into the room carrying the box we'd gotten from the yard sale. She set it on the bed at my feet. I don't know what we'll find, but I hope there's something we can use. Monica pulled a chair up to my bed. This is the nicest hospital room I've ever seen. She picked up the pedicure thing, looked it over, and placed it on the bed next to me. I know. I had no idea we had rooms like this. My private room was triple the average hospital room size, had 2 walls of windows overlooking Mount Lakeside, and had a bathroom with a huge jetted tub. The walls and ceiling were painted in muted hospital green. The floor was fake wood, but it was one of the nicer fake woods. Antique looking furniture hid all of the hospital machines. This is the corner birthing suite. I had them give us this room because it has 2 folding Murphy beds. Haley pointed to an antique looking cabinet. That armoire has one, and the other is in that cabinet. She pointed to a long, tall mahogany cabinet to my left. How did you know about this room? The hospital had been built after she'd had her twins. Haley pointed to her chest. Hospital Board of Trustees. This beats the room I had at Seton Southwest when I had Landon. There was barely enough room for me and him. Monica pulled out the laptop, opened it, and sighed. Did it come with a charging cord? Because it's dead. No, all we got was the laptop. I should have looked for the charger. But I had been too busy stealing the laptop from Dr. Dick's mother, so I hadn't thought about it. Monica set the laptop down on the rolling table next to me. It's a Dell. Let me see if anyone has a cable we can borrow. She headed out of the room. Haley pulled out the box of pictures and set it next to me. She took the chair Monica had just vacated. Oh. Hopefully these will help. She popped the lid off the box and handed me a handful photos. Jane certainly loved her some pictures. She actually printed them out. Not many people do that anymore. Haley was right. People took thousands of pictures, but they rarely printed them out. If they did, it was to frame them for display. In this day and age, it was strange to have a box of pictures. I wish I had found her cell or her purse. I hadn't gotten over that yet. I glanced at the first photograph in the pile Haley had given me. It was of a smiling Jane standing on a beach at sunset. The water behind her was Caribbean blue. I turned the picture over to see if anything was written on the back, but it was blank. Haley took the picture. That certainly isn't Lake Travis. She flipped the picture around and then placed it face down next to the box. Who do you think took the picture? Maybe a boyfriend. The women who worked at the brothel did have unusual employment, but they were still women. Some of them probably had boyfriends. I wondered how that worked. None of the men I knew would be okay with their girlfriends sleeping with other men. Then again, I didn't know that many men. I don't know a man who would be okay with his girlfriend sleeping with other men. They probably exist, but I've never met one. Haley snapped her fingers. Unless her boyfriend didn't know she was a working girl. What if he found out and killed her? I guess it's possible. That would mean that her death had nothing to do with warning me. That's just too much of a coincidence for me. Coincidences happened every single day, but this one was just too convenient. You're probably right, Haley said. But, I still think it's a good idea to find out if she had a boyfriend. I picked up another picture. It was a close-up photo of a rose. Since she hadn't been killed by a rose, I put it face down in the pile Haley had started. Maybe you'll find out at lunch with Davina tomorrow. You're going to lunch with Davina Hasselhoff. Monica walked in and waggled a Dell charging cable. One of the nurses let me borrow this. Someone needs to walk her through the dressing like a female process. Haley pulled out a handful of pictures. I was hoping we could all go together. Davina's a good source of information and she seems willing to help, but she's scared to say anything when she's at work. There are cameras everywhere, and the madam, Natasha, isn't a very nice person. Today Davina was nicer and helpful. Haley worked her magic and now Davina's going to help us. I winked at Haley. Sweet Haley strikes again. How do you make people like you? Not a talent I possess. Monica thought about it for a couple of beats. Or really care about, but it works for Hales. Haley went from picture to picture, glancing at them and then putting them face down. Y'all found pictures? Monica plugged the Dell in for charging. That's odd, most P. Opal don't print out pictures anymore. I know. I glanced down at the next one in my stack. Jane was smiling and leaning against the hood of her car. In the windshield, there was a faint, blurry outline of the man taking her picture. I held it closer to my face, trying to get a better look at the man. Here's the reflection of a man taking her picture. Haley took the photo and held it closer to her face too. I can't quite make him out. Monica pulled out her smartphone and clicked an icon. Magnifying app. She zeroed in on the man and zoomed in, but all that did was make things blurrier. She shook her head. This isn't helping. She took a picture of the photo. I know a guy who can help us. I can't believe I'm doing this. She rolled her eyes and then scrolled through her contacts until she hit the one titled Giant Asshole. She clicked the number and put the phone to her ear. Who's Giant Asshole? I wished I had a contact named Giant Asshole. The only cool contact name I have is Cherie Wine, but that's her real name. And she's super nice, so I would never name her Giant Asshole. My ex-husband. One side of Monica's mouth curled up in a snarl. I heard the phone ring and then a male voice said, "Hello. It's me. I have 2 photos I need enhanced pixel by pixel. In the first one, there's a reflection in the car's front window that I need cleaned up. The second one is a note. Part of the message is blurred by a coffee stain. I'm sending them now. It done ASAP. FYI, my new boyfriend kills people for a living, so please make the photos a top priority." She hung up. Haley and I shared a look and waited for Monica to explain, but she opened the laptop and appeared to be waiting for it to boot. I waited and waited and waited. I couldn't take it anymore. Are you going to explain? I understand if you don't want to, but Haley and I are curious. We're just worried about you. That was Haley speak for I want to. No, but I'm not going to pry. Justin owns a cybersecurity business. He started out as a hacker and then turned that into a business. Monica shrugged. We don't have the best relationship. Monica never spoke about her ex-husband. Until now, I hadn't even known his name. We waited for her to elaborate, but there was nothing but dead air. He'll have the images to us soon, but I'm not sure it's going to tell us much, Monica finally said. I can't see that her boyfriend killed her right before she met with Mustang, unless he was the one coming into town to kill Mustang. Monica had a point. Yeah, I mean, I guess it's possible, but it doesn't seem likely. Maybe her boyfriend or whoever took the picture also knew what she was going to tell me. It seemed far-fetched, but far-fetched was all we had. Monica set the photo next to the open photo box. Since y'all are on pictures, I'm going to see what I can find on the laptop. I hope there's something worth my concussion. The pain was better, but it still hurt. I'd declined my next round of narcotic pain relievers in favor of OTC pain relievers so I could think. I hope they didn't erase the hard drive before they put it in the yard sale. Monica hit a couple of keys. I think we're in luck. It's still password protected, so the chances are that it wasn't erased. How's that lucky? Haley continued working her way through the stack of pictures. Isn't password protection bad? Yes, but most people can't remember all of their passwords, so they either write them down, use a combination of easy-to-remember personal information, or the newest convention is to use a combination of personal info and site-specific info. What does that mean? I only have one password and I use it for everything except my work computer. I know it's bad, but I can't remember a gazillion passwords. Site-specific is like using the name of the website plus your birthday. Like for your bank, the password would be Lakeside Bank 1019 because your birthday is October 19th. It's not the most secure password, but it's easy to remember. Monica always had the best information. I like that idea. I might do that, but then she'd know all of my passwords. I could use Max's birthday instead of mine. No one would ever think of that. The computer is finally finished booting up. Looks like her login is Jado. That's original. Monica glanced over at us. Y'all didn't find a little scrap of paper with my password is written on it, did you? I wish. From now on, I was totally hiding that post-it note with my password on it under my keyboard at work instead of having it stuck to my computer screen. At work they make us change our passwords every 30 days, and it can't be like any of the passwords we've had in the past. If the hospital wanted better cybersecurity, they shouldn't ask me to change my password all the time, and then I wouldn't have to write it down. Haley picked up the picture box and appended it. A few remaining pictures fell out but no post-it notes. I'll text Davina and see if she knows Jane's password. She pulled out her phone and sent the text. Her phone buzzed a few seconds later. She says she doesn't know Jane's password, but she'll ask around and see if anyone else does. Monica rummaged through the box from the yard sale and came out with the set of keys and the metal lockbox. What are these? They were selling a set of keys and that box at the yard sale. I grabbed both. I shrugged. I figured if Jane locked it away, it was important. Monica tried every key, but none of them fit the lockbox. How come? We keep finding keys that don't fit anything. No idea. I certainly don't have keys lying around that don't fit anything. Haley began putting the pictures back into the picture box. Me either. It's weird. I reached into the yard sale box. There was a glass jar of buttons that I was certain I didn't put there before. Did you stick this jar into the box? I held up the jar that was filled to the top with buttons. Did Jane do a lot of sewing in her spare time? Haley shook her head. Never seen it before in my life. I didn't put it into the box. I don't know where it came from. I poured out the buttons into my lap, and a small key that had been mixed in with the buttons landed on top of the button pile. Monica grabbed it and shoved it into the metal box's lock. It turned. Oh my god. Is that what I think it is? I couldn't believe my eyes. 15. Tease a dried up human finger wearing a wedding band. Monica jiggled the box, making the finger move around. It's a big finger. I think it's male. What is the deal with all of the body parts? Haley whispered the last 2 words. Why do we keep finding body parts? We didn't find the severed penis, it was mailed to me. I felt clarity was important. This one isn't fresh like the penis. This finger has been dried. Monica lifted the box to her nose and sniffed. Doesn't smell. It's like finger jerky. Monica had a super sniffer, so it showed her level of commitment that she was willing to sniff the finger jerky. Haley finger combed her hair and started pacing. Pacing is Haley's go-to self-soothing tool. Some people eat chocolate, some people drink alcohol, some people pace. I'm a self-soothing cupcake eater. After my divorce, I emailed Cupcake Wars and volunteered to eat all of the leftover cupcakes baked by the loser of the final round. They haven't gotten back to me yet. That was almost a year ago. I might need to double-check that my email didn't bounce back. What are the possible reasons someone would keep a jerky finger? Haley was doing her best to wear a hole in the fake wood. Maybe she was holding it for a friend. That didn't seem likely, but I guessed it was possible. Think this is the finger of severed penis guy? Monica shook her head. I think the finger is older. She shrugged. I can't think of any reason to keep a jerky finger. Did her dad die and she thought, hey, I'd like to keep a piece of him, so she ripped off his finger? It seems like an odd memento. Maybe she found it. I hunched my shoulders. I got nothing. I can't think of a reason to keep a jerky finger. I'm going back to the holding it for a friend scenario. Then again, what kind of friend would ask her to hold a severed body part for them? Haley stopped pacing and glared at me. You. That's fair. I held up my index finger. But I don't know anything about this finger. I racked my brain. Other than sentimental value, or maybe this is something she's holding over someone's head. Wait a minute. What if she received the finger as a threat, like I did the penis? Because someone's threatening to cut off her finger if she does or doesn't do something. Monica sounded skeptical. Wouldn't they send a fresh finger? I don't know about you, but it sort of undermines the immediacy of the threat for me if they take time to dry it. Monica was really giving this some thought. Think about it. Let's say for the sake of argument that this is her boyfriend's finger. First, it has a wedding ring. Which means either it belongs to Jane's husband, which no one knew she had, or it belongs to a married man. Second, the threat of her man losing body parts if she doesn't cooperate isn't as dramatic or urgent if they chop off the finger, wait for it to be properly jerkified, and then deliver it. It could be weeks if not months before she gets another jerky body part. I don't know about you, but I wouldn't take that threat seriously. So we're back to square one. Haley paced faster. No wonder she was so thin, she'd turned pacing into an Olympic sport. Hang on. I held up my hand. What if she needs the finger to open something? Like a fingerprint lock. It was gross and horrible, but it was a reason to keep a dried up finger. I don't think so. Haley stopped pacing. Usually, thumb or index fingers are used for biometric locks. She glanced at the finger. I guess it could be an index finger that just happens to be wearing a wedding band. Can you still use the fingerprint of a jerkified finger? I looked at Monica, and so did Haley. Why are y'all looking at me? How would I know? Monica looked at me and then at Haley and then back at me. You're kind of our badass tech guru. I was with Haley. I was tired of severed body parts ending up in my lap. Monica pulled her phone out of her back pocket. Did you hear something from your ex? Haley stopped pacing again. And looked so hopeful. I wasn't sure what exactly she was hoping the picture would show, maybe the photographer holding a camera in one hand and an ice pick in the other, but she was hopeful. No, I'm texting Bautista. Her thumbs flitted over the screen. She read the text out loud as she typed. Hypothetically, can you use a mummified finger to open a biometric lock? 5 seconds later, Bautista burst through the door. Love, why do you want to know if a dried up finger can be used for biometrics? His British accent made that sentence sound so fancy. Next time you should be a little more vague. It was just a suggestion. I'd found that when dealing with men who were overly protective and didn't understand about the occasional finding of a jerkified body part, that directness was counterproductive. His eyes landed on the open metal box and the finger. I had a feeling. Your question wasn't hypothetical. We found this finger at a yard sale. The words tumbled out of Haley's mouth. His eyes went to Monica. I hope you didn't pay too much for it. I bought it. Well, actually it was free. I wasn't sure about the ethics of purchasing severed fingers. In any case, I hoped we weren't at fault. And what? You thought, hey, free finger, and you scooped it up. Bautista had the same WTF look on his face that I'd seen on both Damon's and Ben's faces from time to time. I pointed to the metal box. Technically, it was in that box. We just opened it. Just so I understand, you bought a metal box. It was free. The cross-dresser who was running the yard sale gave us the box after the fight. Now that I heard that sentence out loud, I didn't think it helped our case. I'm beginning to understand Damon's frustration with Mustang. Bautista glanced at me and back to Monica. Would you mind giving me the name of the cross-dresser? I'd love to have a chat with him. Her, Monica, Haley, and I said in unison. Excuse me, her. I'd love to have a chat with her. Since she gave you the box, wouldn't you say that it is possible she's acquainted with the finger's previous owner? I shook my head. I don't think so. It was a yard sale full of items she was selling for a friend who, died. I don't think Davina knows about the finger. If I told Bautista that these were Jane's things and that we were investigating her murder, I was 100% sure he'd rat us out too. Damon, who would take all of Jane's things from us and turn them over to Ben and the police. Davina who? He smiled at Haley. How did he know she was the weakest link? Hasselhoff. She smiled back. I don't think she knows about the finger either. She just schedules the appointments for the brothel and doesn't have much to do with their business. Haley clamped a hand over her mouth. She couldn't resist a polite smile. Manners were her kryptonite. Bautista scratched the back of his head, and it was like he was taking a minute to collect himself. He took a couple of deep calming breaths and added some wattage to the polite smile he directed at Haley. Let me see if I've got the facts straight. You went to a yard sale at a brothel and were given a metal box containing a human finger by a cross-dressing madam. Davina isn't the madam. She only schedules the appointments. Natasha is the madam, and according to Davina she's not a very nice person. Haley turned huge, frightened eyes on me. She was the world's worst liar, which meant that she tended to tell the truth even when it wasn't in her best interest. Bautista turned to Monica. What do you have to say about this? I have no idea who Natasha is or what she does. Monica smiled, tilted her chin down, and looked up at Bautista through her lashes. He crossed his arms. Oh no, the lash thing isn't going to get you out of this one, love. Either you tell me right now what's really going on or I'm going to take Ms. Haley to a CIA black site and ply her with tea and polite conversation until she tells me everything. Haley put her hands up and took a step backward. She looked like a caged animal. Mustang went to meet with Jane Doe but found her dead. Someone might be in town to kill Mustang, so we're investigating Jane's death. We found out that she worked as a prostitute at a brothel when she wasn't substitute teaching. These are her things. All of that was after Mustang received a severed penis in the mail. She spilled it all out on one single breath. She looked like she was about to cry. Sorry. I couldn't stop myself. Slowly, Bautista turned to me. Someone sent you a severed penis in the mail. Out of all of Haley's verbal diarrhea, that was the one fact he'd latched onto. Just like a man. My life might be in danger, but all he heard was severed penis.